It's ironic that people with excess body fat are in a starvation mode. Starvation, not from a calorie perspective, but from a nutrient perspective and from an ability to access that stored body fat. Health is simple, but it's not easy. How does one find balance in a world desperately out of balance? 7 out of every 10 people in the United States right now are suffering at least one micronutrient deficiency. So that's a cellular energy production problem. And it's because they're not nourishing themselves well. We have a paradigm in our culture of overfed, but undernourished. Even in holistic health circles, there's still so much that gets missed. All of these things are not bad by any means. I do all of them, but they're just a speck in what is the true masterpiece that you've got to design if you're holistically healthy.
Man, I don't even know where I want to begin with you.
My brother from another mother.
My brother from another mother. For real, for real. So, yeah, let's begin with that story at Confluence, actually, because it's hilarious.
It's very funny. And I feel like we were just saying off air, we've been orbiting each other's spheres for quite some time now. Yeah. Probably in the realm of a couple of years, honestly. We've got so many mutuals and stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, as soon as I learned about Confluence, I was like, okay, we got to go to this thing. But it's very funny because I had numerous comments of like, hey, you kind of look like Alec, but a couple of like really big ones. So one time I was up at the shop. I think I was just sitting there, taking it all in, drinking a coffee, and some guy comes up to me and he like really endearing, puts his hand on my shoulder, gives it a big squeeze, looks me dead in the eye, and he's just like, man, just thank you. Like what you've created is remarkable. And I'm like,
Radical Health Radio?
I'm like, does he follow me on Instagram? And then I'm like, oh, he thinks I'm Alec. And I kind of just ran with it. I didn't want to like burst his bubble. He was having a moment with the man. He thought he was talking to the man. So I was like, thank you so much, bro. Anyway, he left. And within 15 seconds, he must have realized. He was like, I don't think that was him. He turned around. He was like, you're not Alec, are you? I was like, I am not Alec. But I get it, man. I get it. And there was numerous. There must have been half a dozen people over the course of that weekend that was like, are you guys brothers? I was like, maybe.
I really did think about like reversing and having you sit here and then even put these raw optics on and he looked like me. I was like, damn, he kind of does.
It would have been a good skit. We should have saved it for April and did a little April Fools.
Oh, no. That would have been perfect, man. Or like an IG takeover where you just take over my IG. But you like talk as if it's totally normal. It's you talking about whatever.
Just run a whole episode. Yeah, I'll interview you. Let's go.
Maybe if I need to take breaks, you can be my guest.
I like it.
Guest host or something like that. So I want to start by you sharing your journey, your origin story, and what brought you into quote unquote holistic health in the wellness space, and then also what brought you to Heart and Soil too.
Well, I think I have a story that mirrors a lot of people who end up in the health space, which is one of not being healthy. It's kind of like our desperation becomes our motivation. We've got the wounded healer archetype a little bit. We're like, I want to help people not experience what I went through. But my journey started in England, in a sleepy, kind of grey, working class, northwest town, little town called St. Helens.
How far away is it from Scotland?
It's a couple-hour drive to the border, so not terribly far. I mean,
so it makes sense of the accent, though. It's like a blend between a British accent and a Scottish accent.
Well, I was just talking to some friends. I think it takes maybe like 8 hours to drive from one side of Texas to the other side. And it takes...
No, I think even longer than that.
It might be longer.
Like 16.
And to go from like the tippy top of the UK and then Scotland all the way down to London is probably about 6 to 8 hours, depending on traffic. And I think the country of England and the UK fits inside of the state of Texas like a dozen times or something crazy like that.
France and Germany fit inside Texas.
Yeah, it's trippy to think about.
Yeah.
Like United States is so expansive. And funnily enough, that's kind of, there's something in England, and Aussies talk about this a lot too, the tall poppy syndrome. Mm-hmm. Probably heard about it. It's like this idea that in England, the only people that are culturally celebrated for being successful is the footy players, the soccer players.
Yeah.
So we have some celebrities, some soap opera stars and some football players, and they get a free pass to be successful and break the mold. But everybody else, it's kind of like you chop the tall poppy down. You don't say like, wow, what a cool tall poppy. I wonder how it got so big. And it's used as a signal of inspiration and growth as much as like, no, everybody should be at the same level if you're trying to grow. Like my mates growing up, like if you had anything like a growth mindset, which I didn't at the time, this is a big part of the reason that I left. But, if I did, it would be like, gay. Like, what are you doing, man?
Kind of appreciate that a little bit, though.
Right.
I meant like the term, like teenage boy, gay.
Yeah, exactly. It was a word that was completely okay to you. I think it's back now. I think we can say it. I think we can say it. So it's just so funny because like I was always drawn to America because we took family holidays growing up here. We went to classic tourist stuff, Disneyland and all of that. Yeah. But I was always enamored by American people because I thought they were so friendly. And I realize now, maybe living here, that I thought they were friendly because they were working for tips. And, there was a bit of a contract there. And that was cool. But I was like, it's so cool and it's so big and the food is so different and it's fun. And there was a part of me that was like, maybe I would like to live there one day. But going back a few steps, growing up in my household in the UK, my mom and dad are great. I love them to bits. But we had our health challenges as a family. We had this mindset of kind of like determinism from the genetic perspective. We had the cancer gene and we had the fat gene. We didn't have much going for us, I watched my mom grow up with a lot of weight struggles, Slim Fast, Weight Watchers, sin points, all of that. And I was learning, I didn't understand, I've unpacked it since, but I didn't understand at the time that what I was learning is a lot of your worth is tied to your body. That's what I was learning. Because she would have a good week when she was slimmer of the week, and she would have a bad week if she didn't lose or gained weight, God forbid. And just not a good relationship to have with this incredibly intelligent thing that we now occupy. And then the cancer side of the house, by the time I was a teenager, I'd lost both sets of grandparents on either side. And I remember my auntie passed away in her 50s. There was a lot of early death that was related to chronic diseases of lifestyle, most of that being cancer. A lot of smoking, drinking, not a healthy family. So I was kind of self-conscious, chubby, awkward, and also carrying this belief that, man, I think, we're just destined to be sick. We're destined to be sick and pass away early. There's a memory I have from my childhood where my mom was talking to my dad in the kitchen about getting a proactive double mastectomy. Like I think maybe I should take my breast off because the women in my family get breast cancer. And I was just like, oh my God, is that our fate kind of thing, So I was kind of lost and I was kind of angry and I was not confident. And that's probably what creates so much anger. I think anger and confusion live very close together. So like confused about who I am, confused about just growing up when the hormones hit and you're trying to find your hierarchy within schools and things like that. A lot of confusion, a lack of confidence in this looming cloud of, oh no, we are not healthy. I'm going to be fat all my life. I'm not going to be confident. And there's many series of events that transpired to kind of open a door for me. But one of them was, funnily enough, a podcast. That's why I feel so passionate about podcasts now, because this must have been back in 2009, 2010, maybe. Wow. Before podcast, way before. I'm 36.
Okay.
So way before podcasting was trendy and cool.
So I have to call you older brother.
Older bro. Okay. Big bro.
Big bro.
Yeah, I listened to this crazy thing called a podcast. I think they were relatively new at the time. It was a guy called Mark Sisson. I'm not sure if you know that name.
Yeah.
Kind of like one of the OGs of this paleo movement in terms of the diet lifestyle, which is a very simple way of saying like, eat from the land, eat what nature provides. But he had this thing. He was a high level athlete for a long time. And I was in this athletic phase of my life where I was trying to play rugby and wanted to be a pro at that. And it would transition later into MMA. But I wasn't thriving as an athlete. I was young still and my body didn't feel it. I was chubbier than I would like. My knees hurt. It's like, as a teenager or an early 20-year-old, you're supposed to be made of magic and rubber and, bounce back from injuries. And he said, I gave up grains. I gave up gluten-containing grains for 30 days and my whole life changed. So I thought, well, why don't I do that? Because at the time, I was what I would call a dietitian's wet dream. I was doing everything perfectly. I was tracking my macros. I was low-fat this. I was doing all of the colloquially right things that one should do in the quest for optimal health, but not feeling or looking like that. So I was like, I was eating a lot of bread, whole wheat wraps, of course, and things like that. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. And lo and behold, it transformed a lot for me in 30 days too. Just felt my gut settle down a lot. At the time, I didn't realize that my toxic nuclear level farts were not a sign of health, that I just thought they were funny, that I had the stinkiest farts and realized, no, I probably was rotting from the inside. And I just stopped. I stopped having constant gas and my knee pain went away. By the end of the 30 days, I'd maybe lost like 5 to 10 pounds of fluff and inflammation was down. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that planted the seed for if everything you believe to be true about nutrition is wrong, what else is wrong? And as you know, that's a rabbit hole that takes you very, very far.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that was the red pill, so to speak, with diet. And that started to collapse other identities and institutions that I worshipped at the time and things like that. And I was going all through this, but still trying to find myself as every young man is. The rugby thing that I thought, I could maybe give it a crack at this. Maybe I want to be a professional rugby player. I think I'm good enough. There's kind of a phase where you either get the contract or you don't. And I didn't get the contract. And it was the first wound. It was the first core wound of not being good enough.
I get that, dude. That one. 100%. That was the same way with me for basketball.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, it's in the guts. Because I still knew that it was going to be tough, but there was this belief that I'm going to make it happen. And then if it's going to happen, my whole life is set. I'm going to be a pro rugby player. So now all of a sudden the dream is taken away. the rug is swept from under your feet and you're like, oh, what else am I going to do? So I was still angry. Anger's been one of my things that I'm constantly working through.
Same.
Yeah. Because I'm your big bro and I bullied you when you were growing up. So naturally, I did what any angry young man would do. And I took my leftover athletic potential combined with a bit of sacred rage. And I said, I'm going to turn to MMA. Yeah, because I like getting
What made you want to do
fights.
that? Did you get in fist fights growing up?
Oh, yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Dude, we are very similar.
Love a good scrap, man. Still to this day, I'm much more of a lover than a fighter these days. But if if you push all the right buttons, you could gouge me into a scrap if you want to.
100%. Same with me. It's funny. This scar on my knuckles, there's 7 stitches there.
Yeah.
That was actually in 2016 on a dude's tooth on 6th Street in Austin. different lifetime. Let's put it that way.
Well, you know what's both, I guess it's disappointing actually, is that I've never been in a fight on US soil. So I never took it international, unfortunately. I did fight in Canada. I fought in the UK, but never on US soil.
Maybe a workshop for confidence.
There we go. Yeah. Just the art of fighting. We call it like primal sacred masculine rage or something like that. So yeah, my dad had a friend at the time that everybody called Dodgy Darren. There's some epic lore about this guy because there was a guy very famous back in the day in the MMA scene called Lee Chadwick, and he blew up his career by getting involved in a bank heist and robbery. And Dodgy Darren was also involved in this, but he escaped. And then he was just into jiu-jitsu. So my dad knew this guy. I don't know if my dad's dodgy. Maybe he is. But he was like, tell your Stephen. Everybody calls me Stephen at home. That's my parental name. That's my name for when I got in trouble. Tell your Stephen to come and try this thing that we're doing called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I said, okay, I'll go try this thing. Sounds cool. I just got my driver's license. So I drove to this gym in Liverpool and got my clothes folded elegantly with my body still inside of them. Got tied in knots that I didn't even know was possible for the human body to be put in by another person against my will. And I was like, wow, that was humbling. Because I thought it was a bit of, every young man thinks they're a bit of a tough guy, right?
Of course.
And I was hooked. I was just absolutely hooked. I wanted to do it nonstop. It's the only thing I could think about. This jiu-jitsu thing is fascinating. And then when you're in jiu-jitsu kind of gyms, there's a very small crossover to MMA because then you start hitting the pads and then you start throwing kicks and then you start sparring and then you're fighting your friends for fun and it's awesome. And it wasn't that long after I started. I remember like the gym that I was at the time, it was certainly within a year of training that I got in my first fight, MMA fight. Matt Goddard, who's a huge UFC ref right now, probably the top dog in the UFC. He refed my first fight. It was his promotion back in Birmingham. And I was a kid. I'll send you pictures after the show. I looked like an absolute baby. I think I was 18, but I looked like an absolute child. I couldn't wait for it. I was tiny. I was skinny. And I remember walking out going like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing? I was panicking. I was terrified. I was like, I'm going to get knocked out in front of my whole friends and family. YouTube was a thing at the time, but it wasn't the thing that it is today where everybody's a content creator and has their vlogs online, etc. But my opponent had videos of him fighting in Thailand. Steve Wise, his name was. And he had 2 videos of him scrapping in Thailand. And I found them shortly before our fight. And I'm like, wait, this guy's fought in Thailand and I'm going to fight him? Anyway, I was spiraling hard. And I went out there and he threw a nasty leg kick. And it's just the difference from sparring to the fight is the intensity. Yeah. Now, you can spar pretty intense, but the fight it's kill or be killed in that moment. You know, it's life or death. And I remember eating that kick and going like, I don't want another one of those. So I shot a takedown and my strength was jiu-jitsu. And I wrapped up a triangle choke shortly thereafter and I got my first win. And it was just like this massive emotional dump of like, oh, that was the scariest thing I've ever done. And I came out on top. I think I would have been proud of myself even if I'd have took the L for just making the walk, you know, but I won. And I remember just like, that's a tough drug to, you know, you keep chasing that dragon. Yeah. Because there's no other feeling like it, you know? It's interesting that as humans, I think we feel the most alive when we're closest to death. And, you know, combat. Yeah. All of these things, like there is something that the male psyche is very activated by in those spaces.
Totally agree.
Right. And it's hard to replicate. And as we start to age and as hormones start to modulate and stuff, like maybe we start to lose the desire for that, but it's kind of always in us, this just like this little marauder that's in there amongst all of the peace and the integration and the love and being a fatherly like energy and all of that stuff. So it's very...
I think that like going into the darkest parts of you, especially like in a combat style sport or just sport in general, I would love to talk about this actually a little bit. It allows those other qualities, the love, the gentleness, the tenderness to really like blossom if you're on the path of doing the inner work.
Couldn't agree more.
You
Couldn't
know?
agree more.
And there's these sentiments that are commonly shared in the truther space that sports are all bread and circus.
Mhm.
And like, I get that to a degree, but I still love watching basketball players at the highest level of their game play, even if the refs are paid off and all these other things. Okay, great. They're still the best in their craft doing some of the most fantastic things with a human body that one can do.
Yes.
And I still go play pickup basketball all the time. I think it's important, especially as men, I'll say, that you find something to be active in that challenges you where you're competing against another man or another set of men.
Correct.
I think it's vitally important for health, actually.
Yeah. I think with statements like that, two things can be true at once. That, it can be bread and circus.
Totally.
And often
you
is.
take an identity on, of course.
Like the World Cup is going on right now. How much subliminal messaging is being woven into every area?
Exactly.
But the players at the end of the day are out there kicking a ball around the field and pushing their physical capabilities of what is possible. And it's emotional. And if they score a last minute goal and everyone's like jumping around, like crying tears of joy and jubilation, that's still a real thing. You know, so it's contained within the playing board that, I think we all agree that the game is somewhat rigged, and understanding that the game is rigged allows you to step outside of it, but allows you to step back in when you want to too. Exactly. So if you do want to compete, you know, and I think that's good. And to your point about men competing, it's very, very healthy for us, you know, and to your point that sometimes gets glossed over, especially in the spiritual spaces, like spirituality can become too soft.
Yes.
Right? It can become very like, it's all love and light, baby. And it is, but with strong boundaries. And how are you going to learn those boundaries? And for men, I think competition is a great teacher and sports can be a great teacher. So there's this idea that you should be dangerous, but not a danger. Be dangerous, but not a danger. What does that mean? Have skills. Learn to use this body because God forbid you might need it one day, and you better be able to rely on it. Whether that means if you do end up in a physical altercation, that you know how to get out of that, disarm safely, run away, carry your kid, jump over a fence, etc. And the more dangerous you become, the less of a danger you become because you have it under voluntary control.
Dude, this is such an important point. I've thought about this quite a bit. There is no morality in being a weak man who, by virtue of being a weak man, cannot inflict harm upon other people. Like, if you're just a soft human being that can't inflict harm, there's no virtue in that. There's no morality in that. Versus someone who is incredibly dangerous, who they are literally a weapon that chooses when to apply it and when not to. That's a virtuous man.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. Yeah, to have that under voluntary control, that's mastery. That's an alchemical process that you've gone through. Knowing that you could snap people's necks or kick them in the head, or you're very proficient with firearms or whatever it may be. And knowing that you never, ever, ever want to use those skills, but you have them if you need them. Mm-hmm. You know, like how much does it take to get to that level? It takes a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and I think people have all of these ideas in the head about who they are. You know, like people will say all the time, like, you know, I'm loyal to a fault. And it's wonderful to say that, but how do you know that you're loyal until you've been put in a position where you have to prove it in the moment that you are loyal?
Amen.
Life is the testing ground.
Yeah.
Life is our sparring partner. Life is the mirror. Life basically is my religion. Like that's the thing that I know for sure we're all sharing is life. So like use life as this wonderful curriculum. Use it as the mirror and acknowledge that, you know, it's wonderful to have all of these ideas and ideals and quotes and philosophies, but life is the real deal. You know, life is gritty and it's you get into it and you've got to meet it there. You've got to meet, and then you've got to acknowledge where you don't have the capacity to meet it there and get to work, because that's the pursuit of meaningful stuff.
Amen, man. Amen. So well said. Yeah. I don't know if you want to pick back up on the MMA thing, like where all that went.
Yeah. So it was another one of those things, like similar to the rugby. There's a theme here, of course. Like I think our stories have themes to them, where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this professionally now. I've got my first taste of a win. I only ended up having 4 fights in total, and I took all dubs. So I kind of, you can say I went out on top. Yeah. And I won a semi-professional, they called it, a semi-professional British lightweight title, which at the time, you know, it sounds really impressive, but it's just dudes fighting in a sports hall arena. But it might as well have been my personal World Cup. You know what I mean? Even to the point where to train for that fight, I went to Montreal, Canada, to train at a gym called TriStar, because TriStar at the time was home to George St. Pierre, known as GSP. He's like the GOAT of MMA. So you've got like...
Is he a black dude?
No, he's white. He's French-Canadian.
Okay, what? Yeah, okay.
John Jones is the black goat. GSP is the white goat. But you've got like, you know, in basketball, you've got your Kobes and your Jordans and that whole debate. In MMA, there's a few that get thrown in. GSP's name will always be in the mix. So I was like, okay, you want to be the best, go train. And it's very funny because if you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room. You can look at that in so many domains, whether that's intellectually or you're the guy with the most Bible quotes memorized or whatever. You want a sufficient sparring partner that's calling you in. It's that challenge again. And I kind of was one of, if not the top dog in this like little local gym that I was at home. So I needed to get my ass kicked to level the playing field. And I knew that when I was going to TriStar, I knew that I was not going to be the best guy in the room, but I didn't realize I was going to be the worst guy in the room. And I was probably about as low down that totem pole as you've ever been. I got my ass beat. Let's say I arrived on a Saturday and just had the Sunday to chill. Like Monday is pro sparring. And I was like, cool, first session, pro sparring. Oh my God. I got walloped. I got my ass beat so bad I had a bloody nose. I was getting hit with things that I couldn't see. And I just realized immediately like, oh, there really are levels. There's levels upon levels. Yeah. And that put me in a crisis because I don't think I got off like a shot on anybody that I felt good about through those, I don't know, probably 8 rounds of sparring or whatever. So I went back to the fighter dorms and I sit on the end of my bed in there, looking at the blood on my hands going like, how do I figure out how to go home? Like, what story am I going to tell?
Yeah.
That I wish I could stay, but I've got to go home. There's a family emergency. These were all the things running through my head. Quit is the easy word for it. How do I quit? How do I run away? This is too hard.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. And it was I don't know how long I was on that bed for. Could have been minutes, felt like hours. Because it was like my whole life was coming to this moment, right? Like, are you going to quit or are you going to stay?
Yeah, it made your identity at that point.
Yeah. Like I was going there to basically be like, if I get enough signal here, then I'm going to go home and I'm going to win this fight and I'm going to go pro. So, all of it's on the line at this moment. Are you going to be the kind of guy that you say you're going to be? Or are you going to tuck your tail between your legs? You're going to run off home and you're going to make up an excuse? And thankfully I stayed and I saw out that month-long training camp. And what was actually very cool is that by the end of it, I was winning sparring matches that I was getting my ass beat in. So the level, we rise to the level of our environment.
Totally.
And it was really cool. And then when I came back to my home gym, like my teammates were like, holy shit, that's a crazy amount of evolution skill-wise in such a short space of time. Mm-hmm. So it was a very compelling case to be made for also, like seeking to put yourself in rooms where you feel like the fool because you can only become a master if you're willing to be the fool.
Yeah.
So I come back from that. I fight shortly thereafter. I win. It's amazing. And then my life takes a radical 90-degree turn because I'm also still young and I'm still growing up. And I was at university at the time. I was studying to be a physiotherapist. So I was understanding and learning about the body. I was very into all this. I started to learn about food at this phase of my life because I was cutting weight. So I had an interest in the body. I had an interest in the physical. I had no interest in the spiritual, the emotional, the psychological. I didn't even know that existed, basically. I was just on a quest to, if I get jacked and people respect me, my life will be figured out. And then I became jacked and fought in cages and I was just a messed up individual with a 6-pack. So then it opened doors of like, okay, well, there's other work to be done. So I did what anybody would do as an Englishman in the Northwest that wants an adventure. And I enrolled to go to a summer camp in the United States of America because I'd seen American Pie. I was like, that looks like fun. That'll be great. This one time at band camp and, a few months later, I'm in Northeast Pennsylvania at this incredibly posh, wealthy summer camp for these kids that they paid $11,000 each to go there. And there's like 500 kids at this place. I'd never seen anything like it, dude. And I was hired to be a boat driver, which is really rad because I had a boat license from growing up. Randomly, I had it. So when I put that on my CV, they were like, we need a boat driver. You want to come drive boats on this lake all summer? I was like, yeah, I do.
Hell yeah.
And it was great. And, that was a place I went back to for a couple of summers because I really liked it. It broke me out of my shell. I always say like an American introvert is an English extrovert on steroids. They're like American energy compared to English energy is like constant, just cocaine, rah, get on the benches, sing songs, and it's very jarring at first, but then it's like you find your comfortability. I found my voice a little bit, I found a little bit more confidence and
you
things
definitely
like that.
Don't carry a typical Northern British vibe anymore.
You guys washed it off.
You carry an American vibe.
Yeah, you do. I piss red, white, and blue now. It's crazy, dude. You should see it.
Might want to get that checked out.
Your liver is failing. I'm like, America. So I go to this place and I loved it. So I convinced myself I still got like a year at uni. So I go home, I do my last year at uni, and then I've got one last free summer before I become an adult. So naturally, I'm going to go back to the camp. I'm going to have my last hurrah. I've got friends there now. I like it. And again, like people respected me. They very quickly elevated me into a little bit of a position of authority where I was a group leader and then a division leader. So now you're looking after people, and that's the first real taste of leadership that I got. Leadership became a huge theme in my life then. But as I went out for this last summer in 2013, so quite a while ago now, I fell in love with a girl called Nicole. Nicole is now the mother of my children and my wife and my soulmate, something that I didn't even think would have existed if somebody told me 15 years ago there's a soulmate for you. But the story of how she came to be at camp and I did, of all the places we could be, and she's American and I'm this, and her background and mine, like there's just like a 1 in a billion chance that a connection like that happens, and it did. And it's wonderful, and it's one of, if not the best blessing of my life so far. It changed everything. But, you know, as I'm falling head over heels in love with this woman that I've just met, the realization is dawning on me that I'm going back to England and she lives in America. And how do you make that work? Plus, I've got all of this. You know, I've graduated university now. It's time to grow up and get a job. Like the Peter Pan phase is ending. You've got all of these conflicting things. And here's Nicole saying, well, she just worked. She'd been working for a long time. She was working since she was like 15 years old, running a bakery. It's very funny. She actually told me how much she had in savings at the time. And I was like a broke, 21-year-old with nothing. And I was like, you're rich. She was like, well, if you come travel with me, I'll be your sugar mama for a little bit. Because she had like $20,000 in savings. And I thought that was the most insane amount of money. Because I was living life paycheck to paycheck.
Especially at that time. Oh my gosh. When you're younger, no concept.
And I spent all of my wife's then money. So thank you, babe, for taking us on that amazing adventure. But that's what it was. She was like, well, I'm taking this trip to Southeast Asia and it's 8 weeks and I'm going to do Thailand and maybe one other country. And she's like, well, why don't you come? And you know, when people ask you when you're growing up what you want to be, I never had a good answer for that. But for some reason, I had always said, I just want to see the world. I want to travel. So there was something there. So here I am at another fork in the road of like, you've got this MMA dream, you've got this grow up and get a job, you've got all of this stuff over here. And then you've got something you've never felt before in your life, which is like intense, deep love and the chance for the adventure that you've been saying you've wanted your whole life. And it was a little bit of a wrestling match because the logical, safe, sensible side of the brain says, you can't do this. This is insane. But the heart says, go. Yeah, go. You have to. Burn it all down. Risk it for the biscuit. And thankfully, I listened to my heart, much to my parents' pleasure. And I went home and was like, yeah, I met this girl and I'm home, but I'm only staying for 4 weeks and I'm going to sell like the few guitars that I've got. And I've got like $3,000 from this summer job and I'm booking a one-way flight to Bangkok with this girl I just met.
Oh boy.
And they were like, huh. And it's very funny. I kind of used my dad's advice against him and my mom. They both said this growing up. They said something along the lines of, if they gave me any pertinent advice, it was like, just avoid growing up for as long as you can. Delay the grind, delay the rat race, because once you're in it, you're going to be in it for a long time. So then I think it was my dad that made a comment. It's like, well, you just went to university for all that. Like, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, well, you told me to avoid growing up. And here's an opportunity to avoid growing up for a little bit more. And he was like, touche, go on, son. So I went off. I booked a one-way flight, landed in Bangkok. I was there 2 days before Nicole, just spiraling out of like, what have I done? I think I'm in love with this girl. But realistically, we've only probably spent 12 hours together over the course of this summer on our time off. Much of that time off, we were young at the time, was modulated with other people and getting drunk. So you're not in a clear state of mind. What if she's insane? What if I'm insane? What if we don't connect? Anyway, she comes out and it's just perfect, man. It's just perfect. We fall deeper and deeper in love over the next 7 months and we travel everywhere. Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia. We're just hopping around everywhere. We bought motorcycles in Vietnam and rode the whole country. She fell off a bunch of times. There was so much drama, but so much bonding. So by the end of that trip, we're now like 8 months into our relationship. I'm like, well, and this is my person. I'm marrying this person. So we got, we went back to the summer camp and we repeated that cycle for about 4 years. And obviously, MMA just fell away.
Yeah.
It was no longer what my heart was called to. And I think, rationally speaking too, there was a deep knowing in me that I think my skills are good and I think my heart is good enough. I probably could have made it to the UFC. I was never going to be the best in the world. And if you're not going to be the best in the world at that game, you're going to end up broken, brain dead. So I'm blessed. Isn't it so interesting that so many times in life, the best things that happen to us in hindsight were the worst things at the time? Like a dream dying or something and you're like, oh, my life is over.
So many things in my life like that.
There's so many. So if that's not something for somebody to just hold on to, if life is not going to plan right now, good, maybe, because it's probably conspiring actually to work out better than you ever could have imagined.
Amen.
As long as you can accept it and flow with it a little bit, and then retain your agency to, navigate through the turbulence. But that was kind of it, man. And since then, it's been an ongoing exploration of, becoming a man, becoming a husband, becoming a father eventually. Of course, there's still massive gaps in that tale of, where's this health thing thread in, and how did you end up in America, eventually after 4 years of doing that backpacking, which was a very formative phase of my life. I need to add that because it broke my brain in so many ways. Because firstly, I didn't realize it, but I just think this is a cultural identity that most of us hold. What is success? And until you've investigated that idea, success, or the definition of success, is one that you've been handed. And it's usually centered around material things, possessions, hierarchy, status. So, bigger salaries, nicer cars, big house, provide for your children, send them to fancy schools and all of that stuff. So I'm operating under this belief that that's what success is. And here I am in a remote village in Indonesia around people that are living in houses that are built of washed up sheet metal, corrugated iron. They don't have a TV. They don't have anything like technology. They've never heard of an iPhone. But I can see and feel from these people that they're deeply happy, way happier than the successful people I'd met in the real world. So I'm going, what's happening here? These people don't even have, let alone, forget luxury items. These people don't even have what we deem necessary for basic survival. Yeah. But they're warmer, they're more connected, they're more whole within themselves and the land and the community than anybody I know at home, even the ones that are successful. So it completely shifted my reality of like what kind of life I wanted to create when I was going to step back into the real world. Because Ghana is any desire then to fight for status purely for status' sake, or to fight for salary purely for things that I've seen play out that just actually don't make you happy. And I know how many millionaire, billionaires do we need to say, money won't make you happy? And then there's like always the person that's, well, I think I will fuck around and find out for myself. Thank you very much. Yeah. And then they were right. But seeing it in that level of intimacy and seeing the way that they lived and seeing how they were connected to the land and things like that, that really broke my brain. So that was then, it was a seed that was deeply, deeply planted and rooted that is still flourishing to this day about what does it mean to live a good life? What does that mean? And that is one of my definitions for health. When we talk about health, so often we end it at the physical body. It's like biomarkers and blood work and testosterone levels and hormone levels and what supplements you should take and VO2 max and what's your... Okay, cool. That's some stuff if you're into that. But what about the health of the flourishing of the human condition? The cliche mind, body, and soul, the truly holistic 360-degree human. Because even in holistic health circles, there's still so much that gets missed. Yep. We call it holistic because what now we think about our cleaning products too, how we filter our water too. All of these things are not bad by any means. I do all of them, but they're just a speck in what is the true like masterpiece that you've got to design if you really want to live holistically healthy. And it's vast, man. It's vast.
Amen, man. Oh man, there's so many threads I want to pull on there. Hey everyone, I'm excited to share something that our team at The Way Forward has been working on behind the scenes. This September 23rd through the 27th, I'd love for you to join me and a small group of men and women who care deeply about health, freedom, living intentionally, and see the world a little differently for an unforgettable private island experience in Belize called the Way Forward Island Experience. We'll all be staying together at Pranamaya, a private island wellness resort surrounded by oceans, lagoons, beaches, and nature in every direction. The resort itself is beautiful, but what stood out most to me was how intentionally designed everything is. From the wellness spaces and incredible food to the way the entire environment naturally encourages you to slow down, unplug, and be present. I don't know of any other resort that has complimentary raw optics and grounding sheets in the room, and that's just scratching the surface. So a few weeks ago, I traveled down to Belize to visit the resort myself because I wanted to see it before inviting anybody there. And honestly, I was completely blown away. And I had high expectations because several of my friends have been there. And even then, I was blown away. Part of what makes this experience special is Belize itself. You land in Belize, take a short scenic flight down the coastline, hop on a boat, and gradually find yourself arriving somewhere that feels increasingly removed from everyday life. There's something about Belize that feels like stepping into a slower, simpler way of life. I mean, Belize didn't get electricity until the late 1960s, so it's still catching up in a good way. It's a country with incredibly kind people, abundant raw nature, beautiful tropical landscapes, and a way of living that feels more connected to the natural world than what many of us experience in day-to-day life. The experience of being in Belize and at Pranamaya is really, really difficult to describe. Photos and videos don't do it justice, and even trying to explain the feeling of being there is completely inadequate. All I know is I left thinking people are going to absolutely love this place. If you've ever attended Confluence, it's similar in that sense. Confluence has grown largely through word of mouth because there's something about the experience that becomes difficult to explain unless you've actually, ironically, experienced it. And this feels very, very similar. So we'll be gathering there for an unforgettable few days of incredible farm-to-table food and fresh caught fish, meaningful conversations, island adventures, time in nature, time on the water, and plenty of space to simply enjoy being human again. And of course, we'll be doing some things together like qigong, yoga, breath work, and some other experiences. And there will be opportunities to explore the Belizean jungle as well as the island and other beach landscapes. But we intentionally designed this experience with plenty of unstructured time because some of the best parts of the experience is just being together, hanging out with like-minded people. This is not designed to be a conference. It's not designed to be a highly structured retreat where every minute is scheduled, but it's simply not a vacation either. It's something closer to a curated island gathering that sits somewhere between the two. I know many people listening have already consumed countless podcast episodes, gone down endless rabbit holes, attended events, watched documentaries, and spent years learning. And this experience is not about more information. It's about stepping away from everyday life for a few days and surrounding yourself with remarkable people in a place that makes slowing down, reconnecting, and being fully present and just having fun feel effortless. So if this resonates with you, I'd love to have you join us. You can learn more at thewayforward.com/Belize. And again, the way forward is spelled thewayforward.com/Belize, or just head to the description or the show notes. I really hope to see you there. I want to go back to the experience of sitting on that bed when you were just absolutely wrecked in Canada, training with those guys in that gym. And a lot of men these days, largely due to shame and conditioning from their childhood, have these self-sabotaging tendencies that come up, especially when it's attacking a false core identity. Like in your case, I am an MMA fighter. Here I am in Canada, being wrecked over and over and over again. I can't even land a strike on anyone because I
suck.
Yeah, right. Those are the stories. And so back in that moment, I know hindsight's always 20/20, but you decided to stay. I just love to hear about your relationship to challenge and identity and what made you stay in that moment, what you learned from staying in that moment, and then also just self-sabotage.
That's a very good question, man, because I don't really know what made me stay in that moment. Clearly something did. But at the time of my life, there was no relationship to God or anything like this at any point in my life here now. So it's just me. There's no surrendering it. There's no asking for guidance. There's no getting on my knees and praying. There's none of that. There's just me on the bed. What made me stay? I think the dose makes the poison. Maybe it was actually the shame that is creating the same stories that I'm not good enough and here I am getting validated is not too dissimilar to the shame that I know I would have felt if I tucked my tail between my legs and left. And this is why the dose makes the poison. I will say this. I don't think that people make lasting change from a place of shame, but that feeling of something is not quite right, if you can alchemize it, is a very potent fuel. Mm-hmm. And I think much of us, we resist that. We have all these tropes like, no, don't feel guilty, but did the best you could. But there's a big difference between guilt and shame.
Yeah.
I think guilt is, I made a mistake, I did a bad thing. Shame is, I'm a bad person.
Yeah, shame is, I am a mistake.
Bingo. And I've been jostling with that for a lot of my life. And I think I knew that if I went home, I think I would have confirmed that I am a bad person. I think I would have confirmed that I am weak. Because that would have been the results that life was giving me. And I couldn't bear that. I needed to keep some thread of hope that maybe I'm not. So I dug deep, I sacked up, and I stayed. And ever since then, because I didn't die. My world didn't actually come crumbling down. And every little thing that I have gone through and you have gone through and people watching this have gone through that they thought was like, it was their personal Mount Everest that they got on the other side of, whether it was successful or whether it was a flop or a failure, they didn't die. And you know that because by virtue, you're still watching this podcast right now. So knowing that the thing that scares you the most won't actually literally kill you gives you a little bit of permission. So then what's the worst that can happen? Well, maybe it's the fear of failure. Maybe it's judgment. Maybe it's having to have a breakdown. But as we know, a breakthrough often comes after the breakdown anyway. And everybody you hear that's got anything worth saying will say the same thing. Like, your task is where your fear is. There is no growth in comfort, and there is no comfort in growth. That's the way it works, man. You can't have what it is that you want without going through that proverbial dark night of the soul. It's called a leap of faith, not a leap of safety, not a leap of guarantee, not a leap of ease. No, it should be like the most heart-wrenching thing, like, oh my God, I think it feels like it might kill me. Good, go towards that thing. One of my favorite quotes ever is Joseph Campbell's, "The cave you fear to enter has the treasure you need the most." Oof. It's so good. Yeah. It's so good. And in that moment, I didn't have the awareness that this was the cave I feared to enter, but there was something. And I think actually it's like this innate intelligence of the body that's saying like, play out these stories. All right, what's the story that you get to tell if you stay? And even if you get your ass beat like this every single day for the next 30 days, what's the story you get to tell when you go home? Well, at least I stayed. And I'm probably going to be proud of myself for that. What's the story you get to tell if I go home and I've made up an excuse? I can't even imagine telling that story to people because it would crush me. Because what I really know is as good as I could be coming up with a story, what it really is I quit. So it's interesting to relive that moment in person with you right now because I haven't thought about it that much recently, but in the grand scheme of the course of my life, it was a massive, massive decision. It taught me that, firstly, it's okay to get your ass beat. It's not about, there's Rocky Balboa, the philosopher of our time. It's not about how hard you get hit. It's about when you fall down, how quick you get back up. Just life is constantly trying to knock us down, right? Yeah. Or maybe not life is constantly trying to knock us down, but the nature of our smaller self, the lower self, is constantly trying to chop us off at the knees, self-sabotage, as you called it. These identities that are no longer serving us are constantly trying to pull us back from the edge of the diving board into growth. And you've just got to keep answering the call. Yeah. You've got to keep answering the call.
There's something about that too, just from an outside perspective, and I'm relating this to like moments in my life, specifically related to sports too, because I had my identity in basketball. Then my identity was in handball when I found that, and that didn't work out either. And I was wrecked in both cases because I had put my self-worth, my core identity falsely into those things. But what's interesting in hindsight, I can say that as those identities were beat down, let's say, I can say that was a good thing because they were false identities to begin with. Correct. And then you can find who you are truly underneath them.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? I mean, I play out sometimes this alternative reality where I succeeded as the rugby player. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God it didn't work out. I couldn't I
say that all the time about basketball, bro.
Thank goodness.
That's I can't imagine that the person that I was, the broken teenage boy, having success in basketball, and then the absolute debauchery that I would have been engaged in. Like, I would have been a shit human being, man.
Same. Yeah. Same. Well, have you heard this idea that success is getting what you want? Happiness is wanting what you get.
Happiness is wanting what you
Success is getting what you want, but happiness is wanting what you get. In that moment, for example, if you made it, and you were now the star basketball player, you'd have been successful. You got what you wanted, but would you have wanted what you got? No. Which is like, is this it? And then you're chasing these other things. I mean, how many times do we see that level of self-destruction that amplifies with access to basically unlimited money, power, and status?
Bro.
I've, for a long time in my professional career, I was a coach to all kinds of different people and characters and ages and races and everything in between. It was wonderful. But I've worked with some very, very highly successful people when we go back to the definition of the Western version of success. But with that success, they weren't happy with what it brought them. It brought them broken homes and divorces and kids that didn't love them and stress. So what are we actually chasing? What should we actually be optimizing for? And maybe we should actually be asking the question of what does success mean? And can we get these things closer together where if I am successful on my current pursuit, I do feel as though I would be happy with what that gets me. Because if those two are aligned, full send. But I think so often, we don't know what we don't know too. Of course. We've got to fuck around and find out, as the kids say.
Yeah. Messy action. I've heard you say that before.
Messy action.
Yeah.
And it has to be messy. You have to give yourself permission to make it messy. You've probably done this with the podcast. I imagine that this episode that we're filming today does not look like episode 1.
No, absolutely not.
But if episode 1 needed to be perfect, you probably would have never recorded episode 1. So there was an element, even if you're a crazy perfectionist, there was an element of you just saying like, this is at least good enough for now and it will get better. But how many dreams have died on the cross of perfectionism?
Mm-hmm.
Done is infinitely better than perfect because perfect never gets done.
Amen.
So it has to be messy. You have to say, I don't have to have the perfect plan. In fact, thinking you have to have the perfect plan will guarantee that you'll never get what you want because you won't move.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a process of get clear, get honest, get grounded. I need to stumble forward directionally correct. That's all.
Yeah.
Directionally correct. So it feels like it's this thing. And I have to go there to see if it's this thing. But I don't need to get on my Claude bot and have it design the 12-step plan. I need to go. Yep. Life is going to tell me. We are all the scientist of our own lives. And the experiment that we are running and the variables that we are controlling and the results that we are getting from those experiments is what we are experiencing in our life right now.
Amen.
If you do not like the results, change the variables, change it up. But you can't do that from an over-intellectual place. If you intellectualize life to death, well, if you're living in your head, you might as well be dead. You have to live it, dude. Life is here to be lived.
What's so wild though too is in the wellness space today, there is just so much noise. And I'd like to think that this podcast is sort of dissipating the noise overwhelmingly in the episodes that I have. But it's still nonetheless some noise because it's someone listening to the podcast in order to hear something outside of them that hopefully can spark something in their heart or deep in their belly that they're like, oh, I feel that. Now I need to sit with that myself. But the wellness space itself has become this intellectualized muck where people are constantly tuning into all the noise outside of themselves and totally unable to sit with themselves and tune inward. And I definitely experienced that myself, and I'm not perfect. Like being just a few days off this darkroom experience, like being almost, I won't say entirely, but about 50% of the time in silence and then having your eyesight completely shut off. You realize how much noise is inside of you that you haven't even dealt with. And I'm someone who likes to pride myself on having done so much inner work, but it's like, in order to find that core voice inside of you that is guiding you that we all can find. And it's like, you've had moments of that in your life. All of us have, if we really pay attention, like your moment of being met with, do I go down this MMA path or do I make this crazy nonsensical decision that like on the surface seems so insane to go with this chick who I've barely met, barely spent time with to Southeast Asia. But that point inside of you, that heartfelt sense is what guided you to exactly where you needed to be.
Yeah.
But so many of us struggle to actually get there. And like, ironically, that's what health, the totality of all the things we do, that's what we're trying to cultivate.
Correct.
Is that heart sense that is always online.
Correct.
That's it. That's health.
That is health because you would never treat yourself poorly if you were connected to that place also. Never. And, you used a couple of words. The noise is the perfect word. And noise comes from the Latin word for nausea. Nausea. Noise and nausea. And that's exactly what we're feeling. It's a collective nausea because of the collective noise.
Yeah.
So what is the solution? It's reduce some of the noise and filter and decide and be very discerning with which noise you are willing to take on. Conversations like this, I'm biased, but this is good noise. It's because it's coherent.
Yeah.
Static of like jumping around, all these different conflicting views and getting into arguments and fighting with people online, that creates nausea. Now you said another thing about the darkness retreat, like going inward. What is that also? Well, that's silence. Silent is an anagram for listen. If you want to listen, if you jumble the letters around, listen is silent. If you truly want to listen, be silent. And what are you listening to when you get silent? Because it isn't Andrew Huberman or the next PhD or this influencer. It is the voice of the wise self. It might be the whisper of God, the whispers on the winds from nature, whatever. But you don't hear that unless you become silent. And the more silent you get, the more coherent, your ability to recognize what you should be listening to improves. You're able to get this this intuitive nudge that like, yeah, this is really valuable for me right now. Or actually, you know what? I'm full. I'm good right now. I'm satiated. I think we have in our culture right now a severe case of intellectual obesity. We're just filling our minds full. We're like training the intellect. But for what? And learning about stuff feels productive, but it's a form of mental masturbation.
Yes.
So it feels kind of like the real thing, but we don't want to masturbate on our own in a toilet somewhere. We want to fuck. Right. You know, we want to be connected.
Life,
we want to do it. We want to do the thing.
Yeah.
So people are up here mentally masturbating themselves, feeling like the smartest girl or guy in the coffee shop. But their life, the reality of what they are making sex with, intimacy with, the life itself is lacking because they've supplanted it for this thing that kind of scratches the itch but doesn't get rid of the need.
Yeah.
And I think you're dead on. It's a noisy landscape. We've got these devices, we've got tech, we've got opinions, and it's perhaps the challenge of our time in many ways. It really is.
Yeah. How
does one use these things as a tool, but not become the tool that gets used by these things?
Yeah.
Learn what we need to do. Fill our blind spots. Listen to people that you resonate with because you trust they've got something to say that ultimately is what you said before, only going to awaken something that is already inside of you.
Amen.
If I say something to somebody that like makes them, that thing click, it's only because it was already inside of you.
Right. You're not learning anything new. That's the thing. Like I've had that experience so many times reading an incredible book, whether it's the Law of One or the book, The Red Line that I brought up so many times, is that it doesn't feel like you're actually learning new information. It feels like a process of remembering something that was already inside 100%. Of you because it is.
Because it is.
Because it is.
Yeah, it's there, man. Rumi's got this beautiful quote. I went looking for God and all I found was myself. I went looking for myself and all I found was God. It's just like everything that happens has to come from you. And now this isn't to say, I'm not saying that new age idea that like you are God. What I'm saying is like the classic, no one's coming to save you. Everything's got to come from you. You have the divine spark of intelligence inside of you. Anything that connects you to that is also you. And it is an invitation to pursue more of that in your life, more of what is life-giving and less of what is anti-life. Live, if you flip it upside down, it's evil. So that's what evil is. Evil is anything that runs against life. And that's why I said before, like one of my personal philosophies that I try to embody and actually live is that we share life. So I make decisions and I do things that I ask myself and filter through the lens of, does this support life? Does this conversation with Alex support life? Yeah, I think it does. Selfishly, because I've wanted to talk to you for a long time and this is awesome. And this is like the most fun thing for me, to share ideas.
Same.
Like curiosity and conversation is practically my religion. I'll talk to anybody about fucking anything. I love it. But I also think when two people come to a shared space like that other people get to, they're basically in the room with us right now.
Yeah.
The energy is connected and hopefully they get a little nugget that inspires them to go and do the thing that they need. And that's them supporting life. And I think that life supports that which supports life. And
Amen.
That's what we're doing here.
Amen, man. Amen. I want to sit with you for a while too. Since I met you, I was like, man, I gotta connect with that guy. One thing that I want to revisit, since we talked about success quite a bit, is what does success look like to you now? You seem like a successful person, and it might not be monetarily. I'm not assuming that, like, I don't want to assume
I'm
anything.
rich, baby.
I don't want to assume anything about that. But like, to your point on monetary wealth, can monetary wealth bring about greater freedom that then can sometimes lead to a legitimate feeling of success? Sure. But it's not about that. But I'd just love to hear your thoughts on like what success looks like to you now.
Yeah. It's a good question. And I'll say that money only solves money problems. And that can be a big problem for many people, but it is not going to fix your life. Success to me means, how do I feel when I'm alone with myself? That's my simplest definition of it. Like when I'm alone with myself, when I'm not doing, when I'm being, how do I feel about the man that I am showing up as, what I'm doing in the world, how present I am as a father? How do I feel about myself? How am I talking about myself right now? Am I being kind or cruel? Am I loving and accepting? Am I, there's this idea that, if you love and accept yourself, like you're going to lose your edge. Like I just want to remind people, you can love yourself and still want to change.
Yeah.
That is evolution in a nutshell for me. Like I love myself as I am. I am content, but not complacent. I'm happy with the work I've done so far. I'm far from finished.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting razor's edge to walk, because it can become a malaise to constantly search for healing, because that's predicated on you being broken, right? And there's so much of that, again, in the healing space.
So much.
Orthorexia is the unhealthy obsession with health. And I've been there too. I've swung from the extremes of debauchery to the extremes of like unbelievably controlling levels of health that actually turned into not being healthy.
Yeah.
Because the stress of trying to be perfect is more damaging than the imperfections themselves. So it's constantly shifting and evolving. Now, when I step outside this, trite little definition I've got, like how do I feel when I'm alone with myself as being success? Because if I feel content and happy and on purpose and on fire and I'm present, I'm successful in that moment. Does my bank account always reflect the number that I would like it to? No. But I trust that what goes around comes around, and it always will one day. But then I've got these other amazing blessings in my life that I think are far more important, than what is happening, again, culturally thought of as being the most successful thing, which is, what's my relationship like with my wife? How connected are we right now? How in love are we right now? Not just like, oh, I love her because she's my partner and we're doing it. No, like, are we in love still?
Yeah.
Are we in the presence of love? And what about my children? And how are they? And how are we creating this little sanctuary that we've got? I've been homesteading now for almost 5 years. And, if you take the philosophy that I do of like really being in life and working with life, there's almost no better way. I mean, the only better way to support that which supports life is to create life, in my opinion.
Amen.
And that's great if you do it with little children that you make with your hottest homie. That's amazing. But also create life and nurture the land that you're on. We fixed up so much. We're rehabilitating soils. We're planting seeds. And I had a teacher tell me once, is like, we can, do all the work we want and we can talk about all this stuff, but unless you do this, and he had a seed and he put the seed in the dirt, it's like, none of it matters. Unless you plant seeds everywhere you go, none of it matters. Because otherwise it's just noise, it's just that noise again. It's just the yap. It's just talking. So trying to walk the walk. And because I think, I've said this a couple of times, that life supports that which supports life, that has been my path. I think if I try to put out good information into the world, inspiring content, and I'm a health guy predominantly, but I also reject this hyper obsession and fixation with health because I don't think it's healthy.
Right.
So I'm a balance guy, and I want people to want to get strong and to want to get healthy and to want to move the body because it's so fun and it's an expression of energy. And I want people to want to have that like rah in them and fight if they want to, but have it under control. But I also want people to be a lover, and I want people to be able to communicate their needs with the partner. So I just like I've made a career so far on sharing these ideas, not from a place of being a hero or not from a place of being a guru, but from a place of saying like, I think this is the same bad trip for all of us. We're all going through it. And anything that I share is just little bits of nuggets I've found along the way that have helped me heal. And the reason I'm probably talking about them is because I need the reminder of exactly what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. I'm not sitting on top of anybody's ivory throne saying like, this is the way it is. I'm like, anything you see me say is because I'm rethinking about that. And I'm like, oh, this is a lesson that I need to take right now, which is why I teach it. And that has provided a success on my terms so far, in the sense that I live a life I love. That's success to me. My life is awesome. It's really cool. I'm really having fun. I'm getting older, but I still feel great. I feel like I have unlimited energy. I'm not even chapping my own ass when I say that. This is the thing. I look around at people and I observe, and I can just see the lack of energy that so many people are experiencing. And I said this on the stage at Confluence. I said, in the simplest way, if health is anything, it's energy. Because if you have no energy, you don't have the literal vital life force to do anything in life that you care about. So everything that you want to do, create, or even be is predicated on having enough energy to do it. So if you have energy, you can work on your beliefs and identities. You can just keep doing and being more because you have a well to do that from. And I think that is deeply tied to being in the pursuit of what it is that you love, because then it becomes a labor of love. And a labor of love is still labor, is still work, is still hard, but it's fueled on the most sustainable fuel on the planet, which is love. So it can endure anything. It can endure kids who are temporarily sick and you only got 4 hours of sleep last night. It can endure whatever's going on in the culture, because you can't kill love.
Right.
There's no way you can stomp it out. There's no way. So I think that's what I've been trying to pursue and trying to get other people to ask and pursue for themselves is like, what is that thing that is uniquely yours that you love to do? And it's not about what you do. I want to make that clear, because our culture loves to turn that into, well, how do you make it a career then? That's the natural next conversation.
It's who you are when you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Not about what you do. It's about who you are when you're doing it. That's perfect. So that's it for me. And that to me is like first principle success. And, over the years of doing that over a long enough period of time, it will hopefully check some other boxes of, the Western view of success, but there's no attachment to that. There's no number in my head that I need to make that then I'll say, like, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I make $1 million. I don't care. I'll be happy when I show up every day and I say, how do you feel about yourself? And I'm like, pretty good. Cool. Let's go rip another day. And let's see what we can keep creating. I think life supports that which supports life, and you give what you get, and it's coming back around. It's like a boomerang. It's not always on your timeline. Sometimes it's going to get caught in a tree for a week. Sometimes it's going to hit turbulence. But, just keep sowing those seeds. And remember that the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit, but it's coming back.
Beautifully said, man. So many nuggets of wisdom in that. Yeah. So many nuggets of wisdom. You mentioned something about being obsessed with healing, and I know this is something that you talk about quite a bit on your podcast as of late, but also on your social media channels too, quite a bit. The problems with the wellness space, and that's like a big umbrella term, but I would just like to hear what's top of mind for you, because I'm sure that it's going to spark some things inside of me that I'll want to comment on, and we can go back and forth, because there's a lot of issues in the wellness space these days.
Oh, so much. And I know you explore so many of the other offshoot avenues here, not just around food, but around like everything from immune health and immune system and viruses and this, that, and the other. Like it's so, part of the problem is the inherent overwhelm. How do you learn all, like how many hours in the day do you have to dedicate to this stuff? Right. So again, it's like so overwhelming. That's one of the problems. Like trying to become proficient and understand all of this stuff is borderline an inhumane task.
You don't need to.
And that's the solution.
When I do any of my health coaching, so I only have like 4 health clients at a time. One of my health clients, I'll just give you an example, right? So she was struggling to get pregnant for a year. And all I did was change her belief system surrounding her fitness, because she had self-identified with being this individual who is very physically fit. I won't say what type of fitness she does, because it could possibly give away who she is. And I want to be mindful of that. It was, damn it, dude. It was, yeah. Of
course, it was CrossFit.
It literally was. Yeah, yes. It was CrossFit.
Because I'm in that world right now.
Yeah, and I helped her understand, like, are you doing CrossFit right now because you feel such a deep passion for doing CrossFit and who you are when you're doing CrossFit? Or is it to maintain this specific body image? And is it to maintain these specific parameters of what you are? And are you identifying with CrossFit? Like, I am a CrossFit athlete. Yeah. And then the other thing we changed was her light environment. And then she was pregnant within 6 weeks.
Voila.
And it was so unbelievably simple. And that's what I'm getting at is like the structure that I come up for any of my health clients, the structure I come up with just has the basic shit that so many in the health space now completely overlook, because it's the chasing fads, chasing like specific protocols, which have their value in some cases for sure. And but the basic shit of being human,
what that looks like
in my opinion, in the overwhelming majority of cases, leads to better health and longevity.
Yeah. I have a I have a funny little thing I say way too often, but I'm like, most of health is just this. Relax your butthole. And, people, everyone's a tight ass. Everyone is so puckered up and they're so identified with these weird vanity metrics about either a number on the scale or what the friend time is in CrossFit or how many abs they can count or the body fat percentage or they're doing obsessive levels of blood work or they're wearing fitness trackers. And people always ask me like, how do you track your sleep and your fitness and your HRV? And I'm like, I don't. I close my eyes and I say, what's my body feeling like right now? Oh, interesting. Cool. What's my energy levels
How
like?
do you know if you're getting good sleep then, Ste?
It's this crazy idea that I just kind of like ask myself that question and I listen for the answer. And it's wonderful. It's amazing. It's very high tech and it's very, very simple. And it doesn't require a subscription or a Bluetooth. And it's not the sexiest thing in the world to sell. And I can't sell you a protocol on that because what I'm really trying to do is say like, again, you kind of have all of the answers inside of you already. Health is simple, but it's not easy. And the reason it's not easy is because health to me, like another word that's good for health is like balance. It's like being balanced in many domains of your life. But how does one find balance in a world desperately out of balance? That's really the problem that we're facing. We've got a big environmental mismatch. So we're suffering some kind of like evolutionary hangover, regardless of how old you think humans are and whatnot. Like it's quite clear that the world has changed quite a lot in a short space of time.
Yeah.
And therefore, what maybe our nervous systems that have been developed over time have come to expect is a fundamental mismatch and odds with the environments that we currently find ourselves in. The light diet stuff is massive. The food, obviously, we could go down that rabbit hole.
We will go down that rabbit hole towards the end. Yeah.
But then the other novel aspects of our environment that are relatively brand new in the grand scheme of things, like this hyper-connected world, this stress, this constantly opening up your phone and having somebody yell at you because, hey, if you're not thinking about this one thing, you're going to die early. And if you get enough of those, then you start to believe them, unless you have this really good kind of like spiritual immune system and attunement to being able to have kind of like a Bruce Lee philosophy of I'll adopt what's useful and I'll let the rest just move through me like bad Chinese food. I'm just going to let it pass. That's not mine to hold on to. So I think you hit the nail on the head. Health is incredibly simple. A lot of the time, it's mostly rooted in stories that we're telling ourselves and beliefs.
Bingo.
That's
I would almost say every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Well, I mean, the only reason anybody is not healthy is usually because of decisions they're making, and those decisions are always predicated on the story. So I think you can make a compelling case that it is every time. And, there's different ways to skin a cat, and some people don't want to hear that because they would rather say, oh, that thing you're going through, no, don't worry about your identity. Don't worry about going into the depths of yourself and understanding where your stories come from and re-architecting your self-talk. Just take beef liver pills, right? Because it seems easier, right? So that's...
And it's a both situation.
Yeah. Both things can be true. I mean, I am obsessed with the symbol of the yin and yang, these complementary opposites that sometimes, look, if nobody has an understanding of what that symbol looks like, you're like, what is that? Like the black and white fish fighting each other? No, they're complementary opposites. They complete each other. And it's a circle and everything is contained within that circle of life or within that ether. And it's this dance. And if too much of the white gets into the black, it consumes it. If too much of the black gets into the white, it consumes it. And right in that line where the fish meet is that perfect balance point between order and chaos, between all of these polarities that need you to be discerning enough to stay what Jung would call holding the tension of opposites. Mm-hmm. Right there in the middle, imagine you've got two big old ropes and this stuff is pulling you this way and this stuff is pulling you that way, and you're just like, and you sway, but you don't break. I think health, there's an analogy of a tree that I really like, that really good health is like a tree with very deep roots. That means that when the storm comes through, if the roots are super, super deep, the tree doesn't topple over. Now, it might lose some branches and it might sway. And the storms in life are things like loss and grief and challenge and financial hardships. Or maybe you were a goon with your taxes for the last 4 years and now you've got a big fat check that you've got to pay off. And you're like, the storms are always coming. They're always on the horizon. So what we need to do to become healthy is to dig our roots so deep down that we're putting a little bit of an insurance policy around when that storm comes, I might sway, but I'm not going to break. Especially if people depend on us. Because if we break and if we topple, we take other things down in the ecosystem with us. And that should be motivation. We should see that as a beautiful burden to carry that asks us to step up to meet our purpose and potential. The sometimes unfortunate truth of being the most reliable person in a situation is it's all going to fall on you.
Yeah.
But it's all going to fall on you because you're the man for the job. So are you going to rise to the challenge, or are you going to, what's it all got to come down to me? That's actually a blessing.
Yeah.
Like what a blessing it is to be tired because so much is put on your shoulders because you're capable of holding that weight. Oof, that's difference, you know?
Totally, man.
That's the difference.
How important are minerals when it comes to how our body actually functions on a day-to-day basis? And how do we even begin approaching mineral sufficiency in the modern world? And are mineral supplements really the best approach to take when it comes to remineralizing? I recently sat down with Caroline Allen, the CEO and co-founder of Beam Minerals, for a conversation about the importance of proper mineralization and the role that humic and fulvic mineral complexes play in supporting overall health. Caroline has spent years studying minerals in human health and how modern food production, agricultural practices, and lifestyle factors have influenced mineral intake over time. Beam Minerals was created to provide a concentrated source of plant-based humic and fulvic mineral complexes designed to support the body's natural functions. I'd love for you to hear from Caroline so she can share about Beam Minerals and why humic and fulvic mineral complexes are so vitally important for our health. Here's a clip from that episode.
The ratio of minerals that you need in your cells is the same as the ratio that are needed in a tree, in a little plant, in a cow. At a cellular level, we all work the same. I met my business partner, Dan Howard, and he introduced me to these plant-based minerals. We need to bring these humic and fulvic molecules to the world because this is how we reconnect humanity with Earth. When they're in your body, they enhance so many things. They're meant to be in your body.
So if you're interested in checking out Beam Minerals, just head over to beamminerals.com and use code TWF20 at checkout for 20% off your order, or just head to the show notes. And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper on Beam Minerals, humic and fulvic mineral complexes and the importance that they play in our health and all the things related to that, check out episode 246 of the Way Forward podcast, where I had the chance to sit down with Caroline. I even tell myself that with like the incredibly challenging childhood I had relative to other Western people, let's say. Like I was revisiting that the other day, and I don't take the ACE score to mean like to be all inclusive in that, like that's the only metric to know how rough your childhood was versus someone else. And it's all relative, but like I have an ACE score of 8 out of 10, and that's adverse childhood event score. And like they say, any childhood score 4 out of 10 or higher is
you're in trouble.
Yeah, dude, I have a fucking 8 out of 10. And the only reason I was revisiting that is because the darkroom experience, because a lot from my childhood came up. And again, I've done a lot of that work, and still though, I was like, holy shit, like, wow, no, my childhood was fucking nuts. Like it was nuts. 8 out of 10 ACE score is pretty fucking high. And the conclusion that I've come to is like, well, I'm a soul who is capable of handling it. Look what I've created in the midst of all that. Look at the man that I am. I think it's a good measure by who you're surrounded with and the people that I'm surrounding myself
100%.
with, like you, the people at Confluence. Like, holy shit, man. My wife, my kids, like that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a nice flip for anyone who's gone through something that's incredibly challenging, or they're currently going through something incredibly challenging. It's like, because you are the soul that can hold it.
Yeah.
Because you are the soul that can weather it. You are the soul that can transmute it so that it can be a story for other people who have adopted toxic, limiting stories.
Correct.
And that's what I look at my life as, man. Like, I have weathered all of that, gone through all of that, so I can be a testament to help people dissolve their stories surrounding heartache, brokenness, shame, having stuff done to them, having caused harm to other people. It's like, you can rewrite that whole fucking story right now.
You can. I had a post that kind of kicked off the other day because I was like, this maxing term, everything's maxing. I was like, you want a free will max? Free will maxing is just understanding that you can literally reinvent yourself the moment you so choose. You are under no obligation to be who you were 5 bloody seconds ago. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you just wave a magic wand and you're brand new. But I'm saying it's not that far away from that. It's literally just deciding. But what we need in this world, like you, are people that have walked through the fire and now stand as a big mirror, a big handsome mirror to say, you can do it too. because I'm not special. And I don't think you would claim to be special either.
I'm not special. No.
It's like
I still get troubled when like people are like, dude, your podcast has changed my life. And I've learned to receive that now. Like, thank you so much. And it's also, it can be overwhelming because I was talking to Eileen about this actually, Eileen McCusick, because she had the same experience, not at Confluence, but at a festival afterwards. And again, at Confluence, I was like the whole situation with my daughter. And then I, of course, started throwing up for a few days. And like, I was very defeated, but still loving it because I love that space and love the people. But I was talking with her about that. And it's like, it's not fucking about me. Mm-hmm. It's not about me, man. Like, I appreciate the praise that you're giving me because that is feedback that I'm doing great work in the world. But I didn't fucking change your life. Mm-hmm. You resonated with something that was simply shared as a message that, as we said earlier, awoken something deep within you. You changed you.
Correct.
I didn't do shit.
Yeah, you did not literally reach through the speakers or the screen and say like, I'm going to make you do this. No, it's so when I've coached people in the past and things like that, let's say we come into the end of the coaching relationship and the last call is always just full of so much like love and reflection. They're always saying similar things like, no, this changed my life, man. You changed my life. And the way people receive it best, I think, is also, and I think it's so funny how our initial reaction is like so hard to receive praise, right? And that's something we've got to work on because I'm sure you don't have the same level of difficulty believing that you're a bad human when you mess up. You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh yeah, I am a piece of shit. But someone tries to tell you you've done something great. They're like, no, don't say that. Don't look at me. Don't see me. It's so funny.
So true.
Man. So funny. True. But I always say to those people, look, it takes two to tango. This is just a dance. And you were a willing dance partner. And maybe at the start of the dance, I was leading it a little bit more because I was the one that had the ideas. You were resonating with this. But then you are literally the 50-50 of this. I say something and you do nothing with it. Then nothing changes. There is nothing magic about what I'm doing. The magic is in your willingness to say like, I think I've got a dance partner here. And to do it. And then everything you do on thereafter becomes a permission slip for everybody else to do it. Because that's the greatest thing that we need, man, is to just see other people that choose a different path, that choose to rewrite their stories. There's nothing more inspirational than that. Like a person that figured out that something wasn't working and rewrote who they were, because that is what so many people are really struggling with when it gets down to it. Everything that you want lies on the other side of becoming who you need to be in order to get that, right? It's not enough to just, she's awesome. This woman called Kitty Blomfield, and she's so Australian. I know you like Aussies too. Yeah,
I love Aussies.
But you know, they're
I've been
always
gaslighted by a lot of them though, because I'm going to say this on this podcast. There's been two Australians that were vehemently, well, I guess not vehemently. They were adamant about, no, we never say, how you going? I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I'm going to call you out right now. Tessa Wilde and Sean Kirk. You're liars. I'm just kidding. I love you both very much.
You bloody cunts.
Dude, I said it to both of them because they've both been musicians at Confluence. Jokingly, I was like, how you going? And Sean just kind of looked at me. I'm like, how you going?
Yeah.
You know, like, hey. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, that's what you guys say. And he's like, dude, I've never said that. Like, yes,
well, it's what your people say, okay?
It's what your people say.
I lived in Australia for a year, and they definitely say how you going. Yeah.
I've had it confirmed by other Australians.
I don't know how often they actually say good day, mate.
No, that's not.
But
I don't know if that's much of a thing.
Yeah.
That's more like how people outside the U.S. think we all say howdy all the time.
Correct.
It's
like when people find out I'm English and they just assume you like live in Buckingham Palace and you know the Queen or whatever. It's like, not quite, but we do like tea and biscuits though.
I assume you like toast and beans.
Beans on toast is that is what created my optimal health growing up, believe it or not. That's why I was just robustly healthy and so confident, is because it was a regular staple in my very nutritious childhood diet. Beans on toast, and we have crisps. We don't have chips.
Yeah.
Okay, like chips are a different thing. Chips are fries, and crisps are bags of chips. So that was most of my diet was beans on toast and bags of crisps.
Nice.
So that's why I was just a stud when I was growing up. But what I was saying about Kitty, the Aussie, just saying it in such an Aussie way, she was like, she dropped like the C-bomb, the F-bomb, and a bitch in like 10 seconds of this monologue. But it was great because she basically said, look, I work with people on health, mostly around they want to lose weight. And I tell them very blunt, I said, do you want the truth? I'm here to give you the truth. You have a decision to make. You either have to decide that you're going to start doing the things you say that you're going to do in order to become the person you want to be, or you've got to make the decision to give up the desire for it. They're the choices you've got. And she said a lot of people are living tormenting themselves because they're not willing to do what is necessary to become who they know they could be, but they're also not able to get rid of the desire. That's hell.
That's hell.
That's hell on earth. And it's easy in theory to say to someone, right, if you're not willing to do what is required, because change is hard. Make no mistake about it. Change is hard work. Get rid of the desire then. But then they're like, well, I can't, because the reason I have a desire is because I want it and I've got to investigate that. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place with anything in life when you realize you are simultaneously the cause of and solution to all of your problems.
Yeah.
Damn. Like, it's both a tough spot to arrive at and a very liberating one.
Yeah.
And there's that like weird, what seems like a conflicting truth almost, which is really just a complementary opposite. It's like you look at a coin and you see its tails, but then you turn it over and there's the other side. Like the cause of and solution to, it's all you. It's all you, man.
Dude, this brings up a really important point that I actually want to discuss relating to some of the problems that I see in the wellness space is the general perception that I am unhealthy because something outside of me, whether it's a fictitious virus, whether it's even alpha-gal syndrome now, supposedly. Liev Dalton, I don't know if you follow him, Beyond Terrain.
I do, yeah.
He's had some incredible things to say about that recently, as has Jacob Diaz, undercover virologist, and so many other terrain-based people. But the point that I'm getting at is, or even like mold, even toxins in our environment, like, don't get me wrong, there is some truth to toxic things in our environment causing us to be in a state of dis-ease. And I think underneath that, though, is the perception that something outside of me is making me sick as a foundational belief system that people have adopted actually creates the conditions for them to experience that.
Correct.
Which is based in them being in a state of limit, lack, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, I am, insert any of those false I am statements.
All of those plus weakness.
Yeah.
And this is again where the whatever space it is, these alt health spaces gets a bit too soft. It's a position of weakness to believe that a bit of mold caused your health that you're never going to get back again, or that the seed oils that you ate at that random restaurant gave you diarrhea for a week, or that tiny little bug gave you a lifelong condition that you never. Do you really think that those small things are stronger than this that you have?
Chemtrails.
No way.
No fucking way.
No fucking way.
No way, man.
Unless you're weak. Or unless you've adopted many other of these other maladies around identities, and probably both. Because a position of not loving myself or not feeling worthy or not feeling like I can heal is a position of weakness, essentially. It's not strength, right? Strength, I'm not just talking about being a meathead and pushing weights around. I'm talking about a position of strength. Like you stand your sacred ground so firmly and you say, nah, that thing is not more powerful than the infinite intelligence that I am that created me. There's no fucking way it is. But you also can't fake it. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to say to people, don't give those things power, but feeling is believing. And it can be damaging sometimes to people when they say like, they're latching onto an idea like, oh yeah, this is a really interesting idea. But then they've got a dissonance where they don't feel it yet. And maybe they don't feel it yet because either they don't have the faith yet or they've not, or maybe they're in a very low vibration state right now, a very low energy state, and they have to do the things first to build a little bit of that resilience, to get a little bit of that energy and momentum on the side. And then the intellect and the ideas and the concepts can meet the lived reality. And then you are unfuckwithable.
Yeah.
Nothing can perturb you, you know, and that is a state of health, because one of the things that is, I think, adjacent to that point you just made that is not talked about enough in the health space is an aspect of health is resilience. Like resilience to know that seed oils aren't the best thing for us to eat and you shouldn't have them in your kitchen cupboard, but also to know that if it's a social event where you're out with friends and you're having so many laughs and love and all of this stuff and
singing, fucking dancing,
and
like,
oh my God, those delicious fries that you had a few of were cooked in a seed oil, that it does not matter. It does not matter in the grand scheme of things. What you do most matters most. I really believe that. What you do most matters most. And there's a thing I used to talk about a lot when it came to food, and I think it's just so simple, and I think you can apply it to so many areas of your life, the 80-20 principle, because it's just the law of what dominates most. And if you're getting it right 80% of the time, then not only are you creating a resiliency for when the 20% find you, that you blow it off. It's no big deal. But you also create a little bit of freedom to choose to dip into the 20 if you so want to. If you so want to, oh, I'm gluten-free, I don't eat this, but you know, it's my kid's birthday and the thing he wants the most is pizza. What are you going to be the one? My kid can have pizza and I'm going to sit here miserable because I don't eat pizza and I don't like gluten. Or are you just like, you know, this is when I'm going to tip into the 20 and it's fine. And I'm resilient because I'm healthy. And actually, that doesn't bother me at all. Now, if I ate pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day for months on end, probably going to become a problem. But now we get back to this conversation all about identities. Because if I truly love myself and I'm working on that, I don't eat pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because that's not what a person who loves themselves does.
Man.
So it all comes back around, you know, but the health space is just a mess right now.
It is.
It's a mess.
It is. And related to that, the whole conversation of seed oils and chemtrails and all these things is on social media with the small sound bites of information, the content that is reinforced the most, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, let's say, is the most controversial. And oftentimes the most controversial are the takes that are instilling fear inside people. And so anytime I come across content where someone's talking about some toxin in the environment that's causing a lot of your issues, do you have this in your home? Like, is it good to be mindful of those things? Yes, but the unconscious and I guess you could say subconscious position that people adopt in that, if they don't have the understanding to take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and like, is this instilling fear in me? Is that they do adopt that from a very fear-based position, and they're so afraid of everything in their environment that they're literally making themselves sick.
100%. You want to like kill a person's resiliency, make them fearful. I mean, we saw a world-class yet evil agenda of that through COVID, right? Fear is the mind killer. That's what they did. Instilled mass amounts of fear and made people betray their own intuition and will. And they did it. It's an evil genius approach that they've used. It's a playbook they've used for a long time.
Long time.
And I hope that many people that betrayed themselves in that moment will not betray themselves again when it comes around, because something else will happen. Of course, they'll drum up something else. I had something on Instagram kind of pop off the other day, and it triggered a few people rightly, but I had this, we probably were going to talk about this, the whole peptide thing right now, right? The health agenda.
It was on my list.
So let's go to the peptides, because fucking hell. It's amazing to me. The first reel I posted was, isn't it just kind of ironic that 5-6 years ago, all of these freedom fighters like, I will never put that vaccine in my body, my choice. And now coincidentally, taking peptides from some random Chinese compounding pharmaceutical company in the name of health. And that seems kind of ironic to me. I was just pointing out a little bit of a juxtaposition there. Now, rightfully, what a lot of people pointed out correctly is that the issue at hand here is that the vaccine was forced and that peptides are a choice. And the follow-up that I made to that pissed a lot of people off is this issue aside for a moment, not comparing vaccines to peptides by any means, but just taking a stand against this idea that the vaccine was forced, as I'm not buying that for a second.
I don't buy it either.
The vaccine agenda was highly coercive, manipulative. It was a mass psychological warfare campaign. And there were very real threats levied against people, but it literally wasn't force. And if you believe it was, you've lost agency over what you think force is. Because some people watched that whole reel where I ended out that it wasn't forced. You were given a choice and you chose to get it. And you told yourself the story that you were forced to make yourself feel better about betraying your own intuition over something you didn't want to do. And then people would watch all of that and still say, no, they literally said, if I didn't get it, I would lose my job. That's force. No, that's not force. That's coercion. It's fucked up. But you are free to do whatever you want. You're not free from the consequences of doing whatever you want. That's the choice. That's the free will. Nobody was actually forced, you know? So
there are countless examples of, for example, a law firm, I forget where it was, but they were told they needed to get the vaccine or they were going to be fired. And all the people inside that law firm were like, no, we're not doing it. And then guess what? They dropped the mandate. And the whole point is like,
empty.
If you stick to your guns and realize that you do actually have a choice, whether you get fired or not, on the back end of that is beauty for you.
Bingo.
Beauty.
And that's the hard thing for people to see. I got a little bit more flavorful online. I was like, if you didn't want to get it and you didn't, you told yourself you were forced, you were being a bitch. You didn't stand on business. Oh, but I needed to get it because they were going to take my job and this is how I feed my family. I said, in that instance, I understand that's very difficult, but your family would have been better off by you doing the courageous thing and not betraying your will, because what's that teaching them, than the salary that you are temporarily may lose, not definitely, may lose, or may not, because when you stand on business, you see how empty all of these threats were. Or then another door opens, perhaps a much better door for you. Like, and that's why, and I've heard you say this in the past, and I feel this way too. That's why COVID, for some people, is like, oh, that was the worst thing ever, right? And I'm like, I mean, it was weird, but it was a great time for me. There was so much growth. There was so much gift. It was like a global meditation of sorts where we were all forced to shut up, sit down, and pay attention to the same thing. And some people saw it from this lens, and some people saw it from this lens. And the people that saw through the facade became freer.
Yes.
And the people that saw just the fear and got sucked into that, they became deeper NPCs.
Totally, man. Totally. And even a lot of people in the health freedom space ultimately became that because they're still talking about COVID as if it is happening right now. Like, we need justice. And like, should people be held accountable? Yes. But again, it goes back to, did they force anything upon anyone? I'd argue they didn't. I'd argue that they didn't. And again, tons of coercion, tons of manipulation, tons of lies. Totally agree with that. And should they be held accountable? Could you make an argument for that? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I look at that whole situation as a beautiful catalyst for where I am now.
100%.
I recognize the gold in it.
100%, man. It's a big test, you know? And I think they, whoever they are, probably saw it as that. You know, I forget what what was that thing called where they did the like pandemic run through?
Oh, the Event 201.
Event 201, yeah. And, you know, they kind of had a roadmap, and it was quite clearly, I think, let's test this. Let's see how easy we can get people to proverbially bend over and take it.
Yeah.
And I think they got millions and millions of people to do it. But I think they might have been surprised by how many people didn't too.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might have been surprised by how many people was like, hell no, not doing that. So that gives me hope, and we will see. But back to peptides, it's fascinating, man. It's so funny because, again, it's a similar belief to this idea that if things outside of me can make me sick for a long time, then things outside of me can heal me. And that's not totally wrong, because I guess anything outside of us is also food, you know, and our bodies are built from the food that we eat and all of that stuff. So there's again, a little bit of truth to that, like high vibration, high quality food that you're getting where you know how it was raised and if it's grown with life and all of that stuff. It's a different food than the same food on the grocery store shelf that has been pulled a week ago or was sprayed with all that crap and stuff. So you definitely want to go for the highest vibrational food. But when it comes to the supplement market, which is now getting into the peptide market, I think for most people, it's just a shortcut. You know, it's they believe that this thing has the ability to heal them. And here's what's really interesting. People attacked me for, you know, saying this as though I was like an anti-peptide guy. I used BPC 157 almost a decade ago before nobody knew about it. Mm-hmm. There was one blog.
Did you use an injection version of it?
I used an injection one right in my right meniscus. Mm-hmm. And I have a very cool story.
Did you tear your right meniscus too?
Yeah.
Medial or lateral?
Medial. Yeah.
Me too.
And here's the thing, I was still in and out of the UK at the time where we get free healthcare. I air quote that because nothing's free. But that meant I could go and get an MRI.
Yeah.
So I had a grade 2 bucket handle tear on my medial distal collateral ligament, and also the bucket handle tear is what's on the meniscus. So, you know, the doctors typically say this low blood flow area, they don't heal. You're going to need a scope at some point. We might as well just get in there, shave that off. It's very low invasive. And I just had a ick about it. I didn't want
I got the scope.
Yeah, I didn't want it. So, you know, I was already getting clued into this alt health space, and I was like, I can't even remember what I typed in. I was probably like, what can you do to fix your knee non-surgically? And then probably through some random Reddit forum or something, I found a very old blog post by Ben Greenfield that was talking about this BPC 157, body protective compound. They're using it. There's this mouse study where they severed their Achilles and they gave it to the mice, and the ones that got it restitched them together. They use it in veterinary medicine. So I got some dodgy BPC 157 off some English website, and I used it for about 8 weeks. And I went back though. It wasn't immediately after finishing, but it was within 90 days, I think, because that's what they booked me in for. So I went back to get the MRI because I was like, man, he feels pretty good. Maybe it's placebo. And the doctor got the results, and he's like, this is weird. Your knee's good. And he's like, what did you do? And I was like, well, doctor, I got this veterinary medicine. And he like kind of looked at me and just like went glass-eyed and was like, I don't know anything that you just said, but it worked. And I guess congratulations. So it's not that these things don't work. And it's not that these things aren't on the cutting edge and the frontiers of science. It's the whole mentality behind it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's the whole like sticking a foreign needle into your body in the name of health is quite ironic and should be just deeply investigated. Where you're getting it from? What are you using it for? Not just this relentless pursuit of taking anything willy-nilly now, whether it's a GLP-1 to control your appetite or whether it's this to boost your testosterone, because all of those need to, I think, or should be at least, addressed fundamentally first.
Yeah.
Right? The reason GLP-1s are so popular now is because we've literally created an artificial food environment that is causing people to overeat. So we've created the problem, and now we're selling the solution to the problem with some God knows what it is. I mean, it's a genius business move, but it's so ass backwards because guess who doesn't need GLP-1s? The people that just eat the food that nature provides. Guess who doesn't need to get on some TRT or some peptide that's going to modulate the hormones when they're 27 years old? The guy that is not drinking every weekend and sleeping well and in a loving relationship and doing all the things right and maybe getting as far out as eating some bull balls every once in a while, because that's food and food provides it. That food's the foundation. So I do just think another facet of how cuckoo the health space is like anything that comes along and gets trendy. So many people are just like, oh yeah, it must be good, but there's no biological free lunches.
No, there's none. I would guess like the one case where I can say that it makes sense is the case like yours with an acute knee injury. And I say that while also having experienced myself, I almost fully ruptured my ATF ligament in my ankle last year. And I was told that I was going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, if not more, before I needed to keep it immobilized totally for 6 to 8 weeks. And I was doing like jumping 360s and stuff within 2 weeks by applying heat, by getting my bare feet on the earth, by doing Qigong and really concentrating my energy towards my ankle. I did use some LifeWave patches, which is like non-injection possible version. We'll set that aside. But these are the things that I use, and I healed it in 2 weeks. So it's like, yeah, you could still go the route of BPC 157, and it might have some benefits in acute situations, and I don't doubt that. But it's like, are you exhausting all the other options? And ultimately, are you, previous to this injury, cultivating an environment inside yourself that allows you to fully express health, that allows you to heal much quicker than most people do in typical timeframes? Like, because we all have that power within us, but that takes work.
Yeah, it does.
That takes consistency.
Yeah. There's no supplement bottle for that part of the equation, you know?
No.
And also questioning, having this was a long time ago when I got that knee injury, but I would just approach a similar injury quite different now. Firstly, even just from first principles, like it's very easy to just think of an injury mechanistically. Like, why did I turn my meniscus? Oh, it's a lack of hip mobility and that shearing force transferred down to the weaker joint and it caused a torsion. Cool. That sounds cool. But also, like, there is an energetic, emotional, spiritual component to injuries too. Maybe we were ignoring the signs and signals from our body. So there's so much more that goes into it, you know? And then, like you said, exhaust all options first. No judgment. Do what you want with your own body. Honestly, I could care less. I think I have some ideas on what is probably optimal and what's not, but it's your body. I'm down. You can do whatever you want with it as long as you're not interfering with anybody else. And you know what's really cool about the peptides thing is, where do you think peptides came from? Originally, food. There's so much new and old science that's just coming back around. That seems to be how it goes, especially coming out of Russia right now, where they're using oral peptides that are first extracted from organs, because organs are the most dense place for peptides, lo and behold. So GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is found in the BPC 157 rather, is found in the gastric juices of the stomach. So when you take something like gut and digestion from Heart and Soil that's got tripe and stomach and intestines in it, there is very small amounts of the naturally occurring peptide that has now become known as BPC 157. But it's not synthetically extracted. It's just in the food.
Yeah.
That's why we've got hundreds of anecdotal bits of data, and we're actually currently going through studies with Euphoria to test why, when people eat our testicle supplement, whole package, do they come back and say, this is really working? And how do they know? Well, I'm waking up with morning wood again. I'm being particularly annoying to my wife. I feel it in the gym. Like, it's because the energy of like for like is real. And it's something that our ancestors knew a long, long time ago. There's all of these stories about when they would hunt and take down the kill. They wouldn't be like, where's this venison's ribeye? They're going for the liver, they're going for the heart. Wild animals are going for the liver, heart, and brain. And we just largely come to stop eating these foods because we got icked out by them. But there's some magic in these that we still don't even understand. We're trying to establish mechanistic science at this point. And that was the wonderful thing about going to Confluence. People who just get it don't even really need convincing. There is an intuitive knowing that it makes sense to eat a resonant energetic match to support that organ. But it extends beyond just being synonymous with the micronutrients that organ might use. So vitamin A in liver, for example. It seems to be much more mysterious, mystical, borderline miraculous, that we've got very old studies where you could look at an alcoholic liver damage, cirrhosis, and you can give liver peptides or you can feed liver, and to a degree it will regenerate itself. That's fantastic. That's medicine as far as I'm concerned.
Incredible.
Instead of like cutting people open and trying to do a transplant, there's a safe food-based option first.
Yeah.
So it's remarkable the level of options we have available to us that people aren't just, maybe aware of yet. Because you said things that I would totally do now, like energy healing, Qigong, channel your energy to your knee, like use grounding, use red light therapy, get in the sun, eat connective tissue. There's so many other things. And that's, again, the beautiful aspect of this health space is awareness and possibility to so much of this new stuff. And it's always just maintaining that discernment with how you hold it all without getting completely buried.
Dude, just like you said, you are the cause and you are ultimately the solution. Like how deep that solution goes, I think we're just scratching the surface. I mean, I've featured people on this podcast who've defied all odds on a variety of things. People have told stories like Gerald Pollack talked about Prahlad Jani, who claimed he didn't eat for 60 years. He was studied by the Indian government and they verified that for the least 14 days, he did not eat or drink anything, and he was still running up the stairs.
Wait, that's
in the
crazy.
hospital. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So they like actually studied him in an Indian hospital, had him under 24-hour surveillance because he was approached when he was a young kid by an angel who was like, "You don't need to eat or drink anymore. You're living off of pure prana, pure life force." And
it was probably so real and transformative for him that he was tapping into something that we can't comprehend as being possible, which is why it's called. It's what I often think about when I listen about the teachings of Christ and things like that. People are like, he was so special, and obviously was very special, but he was, the reason he appeared to be so special and to do miracles is because he wasn't at all capped by what we think is possible. There is a ceiling that's infinitely beyond what we think it is. And perhaps cultures have touched this in the past too. I know we've got tons of buildings that make no sense through the modern lens about how they were built and stuff. Well, maybe it was, they were more powerful. They were more miraculous. They had more miracles. They had a different kind of science, maybe like the science of yoga and union. They were tapped into something else, And I think, there's an old Ram Dass piece where he talks about, he's always in deep deliberation of how we're going to make it. And he was talking to this ecologist who was talking about the deforestation in the rainforest. And, Ram Dass says to him, "Wow, it sounds really bad. It sounds like it's going to take a miracle to save us." And the guy says, Yep. And then he pauses for a few seconds. He says, "But, we've got a pretty good track record with miracles. We kind of came from nothing. Look what we are right now. So never bet against the miracle."
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Quick shout out to Podigy, the team that we brought on to produce our podcast. We started working with them last year and the difference was immediate. Way less stress on the back end for us with podcast production, and our YouTube has grown significantly since bringing on Podigy. If you're already running a podcast and looking to boost your production value, or if you're thinking about starting a podcast, I highly recommend working with Podigy. If you check the show notes, there's an assessment that Podigy has put together to give you specific steps to take to grow your own podcast. And that's whether you're just getting started or looking to take your current podcast to the next level. Each month, they're giving away a strategy call with their founder, Justin Moore, and he is incredibly talented and incredibly smart, and he really knows how to grow a podcast from the ground up. So if you're interested in working with Podigy, just head to the show notes and take the assessment. And if you decide to work with them, just mention Alex Zek in the way forward, and they'll give you a nice little deal. But you said something earlier about growing roots deeply to be able to weather the storm. So I've said this a number of times on this podcast that I think in the overwhelming majority of cases with dis-ease, there's an emotional component to it, if not the emotions being the ultimate cause. And that's actually a misnomer. I want to say, to be more correct, especially after coming off a beautiful episode with Brandon Bozarth, it's actually the false identities that we've taken on that are beneath those perceptions, beliefs, and then the emotions that arise from them.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily that the emotions are the cause, it's the false identities that are the cause. With that being said, I think that especially in Western societies, there are so many problems with chronic illness and all the things that people experience related to disease that come back to an inability to weather the storm, so to speak. And I mean that from a psychospiritual, emotional perspective. And with that being said, that doesn't mean that you totally forsake the physical. Because I think a lot of people in the health space, even on German New Medicine, and this is not a function of what German New Medicine teaches, it's people misinterpreting German New Medicine, that they basically don't need to consider any of the physical stuff at all. And that's not true. Any good messenger of German New Medicine would say that living as close as we can to the earth, to ourselves, to God, and to each other, which then breeds a lifestyle that is connected to the earth and all those things that I just mentioned, which leads to eating organic, nutrient-dense foods, which leads to spending a bunch of time outside, actually makes it so conflicts don't happen as much, or the healing phase isn't as hard to navigate because you're so deeply connected. And so the physical things do absolutely matter, but you have a sort of the four truths is what you call them, framework for health. So I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful and hopefully simplistic way of encapsulating almost the totality of what we say is health. And the point here is that these four truths aren't hierarchical in the sense that the one that comes first is the best. They are cyclical. There's a lot in other esoteric teachings, there's a lot associated with the four elements or the four directions. So the four truths is kind of an extension of that. And they are basically put, nourish, eliminate, move, create. And we'll go into these a little bit. So nourishment, simply said, is what is life giving to you? What is energy gaining to you? Now, we nourish ourselves predominantly, when we think of health at least, through food. Like nourishing, nutrient-dense food, earth-grown nutrients. 7 out of every 10 people walking around in the United States right now are suffering at least one micronutrient deficiency. So that's a cellular energy production problem. They're probably inflamed. They are probably over-fat, not necessarily obese, although that is trending upwards as we know, but over-fat and under-muscled, which creates a resiliency problem. And it's because they're not nourishing themselves well. We have a paradigm in our culture of overfed, but undernourished. We've got an abundance of calories and we are starving for nutrients. And there's kind of like this idea that the forager mindset that keeps people eating. If you see a person that is clearly overweight, they've actually got what you're looking at when you see body fat is stored energy. That'd be like looking at a bank account with $150,000 in it that you can't spend. But you can see the numbers there and you're like, why can't I spend it? You're blocked. It's ironic that these people with excess body fat are in a starvation mode. Starvation, not from a calorie perspective, but from a nutrient perspective and from an ability to access that stored body fat.
It's also interesting when people fast who are that overweight, they can do an extended fast for like 4 or 5, 6 months or something.
Oh, correct. The biggest fast, it was a Scottish guy actually. I think his name is very close to like Eamon McManus, is the most Scottish name in the world. Massive guy. Longest fast, it was over a year. It was just a bit over a year. So it was something like 370 something days. The guy didn't eat food. Yeah. Incredible. But his body ate his body fat. Yeah. It finally got access to that. So that is a problem with nourishment because again, we've got an abundance of cheap calories. Like you can get, people don't typically have a hard problem getting energy, let's call it. But an analogy might be like putting the worst fuel in your gas tank and eventually you're going to have problems with that. So when we nourish, we're talking about nourishing with real food. And there's all of the buzzwords and there's all of the terms like organic or beyond organic or biodynamic and grass-fed and finished. And what I want to say about that is these are all great. And I'm so glad that we've got an awareness about these things, but also don't let perfect be the enemy of better. Like if you can't afford the cow that was raised by a monk and hand massaged every day and then was shipped to your state on the back of an eagle, then buy the steak from Costco. Like right now, you do what you can with the awareness that you've got, and when you know better, you can do better and strive towards these things. But nourish yourself well with food. But also, let's not forget that nourishment comes from so much more than food. It comes from a relationship to God. It comes from relationships to people. It comes from places. It comes from sunlight. There is so much to nourish. So simply said, nourishment is that which is energy gaining for you. And if nourishment is energy gaining, then elimination is getting rid of that which is energy draining for you. So what is taking away your vitality? And again, let's start with food. So much of that hyperpalatable rubbish that I just talked about is giving you energy, but the cost of that energy is not the bill that you want to pay when you get it. It's going to come with fatigue thereafter. It's mouth pleasure. It's easy access calories. It's hyperpalatable, but it's never going to create health because health isn't created through the food system that we've got right now. It's unfortunately just not set up that way. So, you then think about what when people talk about diet, what is a good diet? Much of what constitutes a good diet is what you don't eat. It's like what you eliminate, because when you eliminate all of the wrong stuff, what you're left with is just the food that comes from the earth. And the food that comes from the earth is amazing. Let's call that God food. God food good, man food bad.
I love that.
Right? And even down to the conversation we mentioned earlier about seed oils and stuff. Like, nature doesn't make bad fats. Olive oil, coconut oil, butter, lard, tallow. Great. Factories make bad fats.
Right.
Canola oil, seed oil, cottonseed oil, all of these things.
And this is a problem that I have with the term seed oils too, because it is a misnomer, because Asian people have eaten what are technically seed oils for a long time and sustained health into old age.
Correct.
Across cultures. And it's not seed oils. They're industrially processed seed oils that are bad.
Yes. Even to the degree, what you're adding into the production process to go mass market like we do here, like hexane and solvents and deodorizers and cooking them to a very high temperature. And also other cultures this is why health is a complex topic, because other cultures might consume more seed oils, but if we focus on that and we make that the be all and end all, then it's very confusing. But if we look at the whole picture, well, they also walk an awful lot and they have a lower stress lifestyle and they really actually value their elders and they gather a lot and they share community. So it's not making mountains out of molehills, but it's trying to understand the whole context. So everybody at this point, I'm sure that everybody listening to this is no stranger to this idea that you want to eliminate that is causing you damage. Like, you're self-inflicting damage when you eat this hyper-processed slop. There's no two ways about it. Now, granted, we spoke earlier about you don't need to become neurotic about that. You don't need to, oh my God, I'm never going to have a burger again. Burger and fries and milkshake is my favorite thing ever. Steak Shack's the love of my life. Every once in a while, you can have a Steak Shack. There might be a point where you get so healthy that you're not even enticed by that anymore. But this is not a death sentence to never eat bad food. In fact, that's a misnomer in and of itself. Food is not good or bad. It's not moral. It's not like waiting on the shelf to stab you with a knife. It's information. Food is information. There's high quality information. There's low quality information. And every bite of food you take is a temporary investment in how you feel, a midterm investment in how you look, and a long-term investment in your freedom from disease and vitality. So if you start looking at it through that lens, it changes your motivations for why you might choose certain things. Then you start to say okay, the short-term mindset of mouth pleasure from the M&Ms that I'm about to eat is going to give me a temporary high, but the cost of coming down off of that is not going to feel too good. And if I play that out long enough, does the healthiest version of me eat M&Ms every single day at 3 p.m. for my afternoon treat? Probably not. There's other work to be done there. So we start to get rid of that stuff, and then we extend again beyond the food. We eliminate toxic people. We eliminate toxic cleaning products. We stop just blasting ourselves with parabens and smelly stuff that's disrupting our endocrine system. We try to operate from this principle of less but better. Take away the bulk of the things that are causing our bodies to constantly be out of balance so we can more easily find that homeostasis. And eliminate noise. We talked about nausea before and the noise. I'm not saying get off social media. I'm not saying never watch TV again. I'm saying to question your relationship to it. How many hours do you really need to scroll a day? And if you all look at your screen time right now, it's probably a bit more than we would all like to see. So how do we eliminate a bit of that? I just got a brick recently. I think that's a wonderful advice. It's a thing that literally locks you out of your phone unless you're willing to walk across the room to do it. And by the time you walk across the room to do it, you're like, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm in the process of breaking this habit. There's little things you can do now because I don't think the solution is no tech ever again. It's balance. It's integrating it into your life. But the dose makes the poison with all of these things. So if we're nourishing and we're eliminating, we're getting those two things right. We're nutrifying ourselves, we're adding things back in that are energy gaining, and we're removing the things that are energy draining. We've got a good baseline to build from. Then we move into movement. And everybody thinks when the health guy is talking about movement, he's just talking about exercise. And I am a little bit, but not just. Exercise or movement, whether that's walking or sprinting or running, bending, rotating, pressing, pulling, play fighting with your kids, movement is an expression of energy. Movement is life. Movement is a gift. Movement is incredible. Things in nature, typically, when they stop moving is the moment they start dying.
Yep.
And I think a lot can be said about that for the human too. So there are fundamental movement things that I would like people to really work on. I would like for them to develop, if they don't currently have it, and then to maintain when they do have it, the ability to sprint forever, because it's the ultimate expression of athletic vitality. I don't care what anybody else is doing in their life from a body perspective. If that 50-year-old can still sprint, he's going to age better than the person that can't do it. Because there's so much that's going on there. The ability to jump off a box and land safely, because that's your ability to protect against falling when you're in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, which is the number one reason people end up in the hospital. And many of those don't ever get out because they fracture a hip. The ability to push a little bit, the ability to build muscle, the ability to ask yourself what kind of body you want to exist in. What do you want it to look like? It's not like overly materialistic to be like, I want a meat suit that I feel better about.
Yeah.
Because it gives me confidence. I like this thing. I like training.
It allows your soul to express through it better.
Yes, it does. Of course it does. And it feels good. It feels resilient. And when we come back to the nutrition conversation too, like having muscle, the reason it's called the organ of longevity in so many health spaces now is because it's an incredible glucose sink. So when you do eat carbohydrates, they've got somewhere else to go. But also muscle is very dense tissue with a high concentration of mitochondria. Mitochondria, the power plant of every cell, all of that stuff produce ATP, produce energy. Technically speaking, if you have a bit more muscle, you have the capacity to have more energy.
Yeah.
And it's going to increase your little resting metabolic rate and things like that. So if you've got body composition goals too, not again, like I think we get stuck in here is just thinking that this stuff is purely superficial. It's about living a good life. It's not healthy to live in a body that's carrying around an abundance of excess fat because it's stress on the system that otherwise doesn't need to be there. Yep. And I think many of our issues are downstream of that because fat is not just a problem that we want to get rid of. It's literally a tissue. It's endocrine. It's, men that are over fat are usually the ones that have low T because it's estrogenic. So there's a whole hormonal component here, and a high T man or a person that's optimally balanced feels more like a man. And they've got more, this isn't just rah-rah about pushing weights around a gym. It's about what testosterone does to modulate how effort feels in one's life. Testosterone makes effort feel good. Don't you want effort to feel good? So you're like, oh, that thing's going to be tough. Sweet, bring it on. That's a good thing to have. So this is where we bridge the gap though from moving and exercising, working out to working in. So there's a component of movement that is also internal. Mm-hmm. This is the movement of your energy centers, your stagnant lymph. This is the movement of stuck emotions, the movement of stories. As we've all heard the cliche, like the body keeps the score, the issues are in the tissues, motion is lotion, outwardly and inwardly.
Amen.
What is stagnant in here? What is stuck in here or in here? Or, wow, this hip pain I can't get rid of might not actually have anything to do with your hip mobility. It might be a story that's manifest. And I know I've never really, unfortunately, yet got deep down into like pattern matching things in the body and what they resonate with. But like Paul Chek's really cool at this. And he's like, oh yeah, left shoulder pain. And he's like, that's a father wound. And then he'll unpack it with someone in real time. They're like, yeah, I never had a dad. And it's just like, whoa, it's kind of crazy.
You should look at Eileen's system too, the biofield anatomy.
Yeah, cool.
Because I know for me, with my left ankle injury, I was doing sprints and I was very caught up in my mind. And it's interesting reflecting back on any of my sports injuries. I know that every one of those injuries, of which I've had a ton, I was caught up in my mind and wasn't actually present with what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was doing sprints and I stepped on a rock that I didn't see. But the left ankle in the biofield anatomy, if I remember correctly, is being stuck in a toxic situation that you feel like you can't step out of. Wow. And that's definitely how I felt at that time with the left ankle.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You see that sign sometimes where it's like, do not operate heavy machinery under the any kind of mind altering substances. And it's like heavy complex machinery, mind altering substances, getting lost in thoughts. And then, don't see that thing, or hamstring goes pop or whatever it is. So this movement piece is really cool because physically express, physically move. It's so fun. You have young kids. I've noticed like my kids don't really walk. They're either, if they've got to travel through space, they just sprint. You know, they're always moving. They're always trying to climb. They're always trying to play.
Especially boys, dude.
Oh my goodness. They're a different beast. And that's the most natural state of expression of that energy. And, you know, there's that line in the Bible about until ye become like children again, you won't enter the kingdom of heaven. And I think that's about getting rid of all of this baggage that we pick up that life hammers into.
Can you do a squat with your butt to your heels without leaning forward too far?
Can you look like that little baby? And, you know, luckily for them, anatomically speaking, they got that little short torso and a big old head. So they're perfectly balanced for it. But they're beautiful.
I always love that though, when a baby like just sits in a low squat like that for like 30 minutes.
I'm like so envious at the same time. So I'm like, that's a beautiful squat, man. I know. Damn. So move, work out, and move, work in. Work in. And there's so many ways to do this. Even just literally closing your eyes and feeling what's in your body is a form of working in. Breath work is incredibly powerful. Praying is incredibly powerful. Grounding whilst you do this is all moving in. And then we get to the last of the 4 truths, but by no means the last in the order of its importance, perhaps the most important one of them, which is create. Why do we do any of this stuff anyway? It's hopefully to create something that we feel good about, to create a radical life that we live, to create life, to fuel life, to sustain life, to create new patterns, to create something that outlives us, to create a legacy, to create, because I think that's what we're here to do. Like we are creators that were created by the creator to create. And it seems that, like, as far as I can see it, I think we're supposed to create. And, you know, people have the things that they get into that they create. But I think if we're creating in that energy of life-giving stuff, create movements, create confluence, create conversations, create podcasts, create families, create love, create opportunity. And that's really the end goal of becoming a healthy person. Why do you want to get healthy? If it's just because you want abs to show off on Instagram, you're probably missing the totality of what that offers you. Mm-hmm. Health is for the resiliency and energy so you can give back to life, because life supports that which supports life. So at any one time, person, I think, can think about nourish, eliminate, move, and create, and figure out where the biggest kink in the hose is. Because the truth is, we need all of those things. We always need to be nourishing. We always need to be eliminating what's toxic. We always need to be moving, and we always want to be seeking to create. But if we try to do all things all the time, like kind of nothing gets done, you know? So there has to come almost like a periodization process of our life. Like, I have to do all of these things, but I can't do them all with equal effort. To pick something up, I have to put something down, a little bit at least. And priority probably shouldn't be priorities, or at least dozens of them, because then nothing really becomes important. So we have to figure out like where the kink in the hose is. And instead of just trying to sheer willpower, increase the water pressure, just say, oh, what really resonates for me there is the movement. You know, I'm nourishing pretty well and I've eliminated most of the bad stuff and I feel good about the life I'm creating, but I'm not moving at all. I'm not moving. I'm just stuck at my desk 8 hours a day. Well, there you go. There's the kink in the hose. Look at your schedule, look at what you're doing, and ask yourself how you're going to get more movement. Maybe the other example of the movement piece is you're the guy that's moving all the time, or you're the CrossFit chick that's moving physically all the time. Maybe too much. The dose makes the poison. Maybe you're working out twice a day, 7 days a week. Movement is good. Too much movement, bad. Totally. Sun, good. Too much sun, bad. You can die from drinking too much water, right? So then it might be a conversation of like, oh, I'm doing the working out portion really well. I'm not doing the working in portion. I'm not exploring my inner landscapes and territories. So at any one point, basically the 4 truths just become a mirror. What do I need more of? Maybe a bit more nourishment. Maybe a bit more discernment with my elimination. Maybe to work in or work out a little bit more. And then ultimately, like, ask yourself, what are you creating? What are you building? Because I do think we are here to build.
I love that. Those are beautiful, man. Wow. I love that. I follow this guy on Instagram who is in his 40s and he's 5'10", and I don't know if he used to dunk, but he, for sure, per his social media, just started dunking again recently. And he shows pictures of himself as a 35-year-old. He's mildly overweight, like kind of fit, not really, still drinks a lot, unhappy. You can tell because he sort of wears it on his face. And he's dunking again. He's absolutely shredded. I know you spent time with the dude who won the adult, like the senior version of CrossFit.
Yeah, the Masters champion. He's got 6 gold medals right now, and he's about 3 weeks out as of recording from going for his 7th.
And he has his own story because he used to be pretty overweight as well.
Oh, it's incredible, dude. You see pictures of this guy at 37 years old, and he's got 0 muscle on his body. He's got 20 pounds of pure body fat and belly fat because he was a functioning alcoholic by his own words, completely physically unimpressive, and, found CrossFit. And what's really interesting, because we talked about CrossFit a couple times today, and I said, like, as soon as you said that story, I was like, it's CrossFit, isn't it? Because I see the neurosis that's alive in CrossFit too. And I just spent the weekend with Jason. His name is Jason Grubb. And he's aware of it too. And this is a guy that is doing that really cool thing where they're flying very close to the sun. Like Icarus story, you get too close to the sun, you burn your wings and crash and burn. But he's doing it in a way that he's aware of the season. He's aware of what it's teaching him. He's aware that he is addicted to this. And he's currently in the process of transmuting what otherwise was an unhealthy addiction into a slightly healthier one that he knows to be the best in the world. Can never be fully healthy, because how can you be balanced and the best in the world at something? But is then using that very potent mirror of actually knowing it and being able to name it and then tame it to still seek the most balance that he can right now with his family. I watched him the whole weekend, interact with his family, and still he's going to make no qualms about this. There is a cost to training at that level. There is a cost to pushing your body to that level. We're talking about a 50-year-old guy, by the way. The living shit out of me.
Yeah.
This guy is fit.
Yeah.
Like incredible.
Like next level.
I'm
friends with, by the way, Chandler Smith. And then I've also trained with Jacob Hepner.
Okay. Yeah. The level we're talking about then. These guys are insane.
Next level. No, it's
next
insane.
level, man.
Yeah.
It's incredibly impressive. And what you will hear from these guys, if they also do enough self-reflection and soul searching, is that, it's borderline destructive. It's borderline neurotic. But once you become aware of it, now you've named this like invisible sparring partner, so to speak. Like, that, okay, so many people feel like they're fighting an invisible enemy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when you know what it is, like, the tricks. Oh, it's got a really good jab, so I've got to work my jab defense. But until you know what you're fighting, you're just kind of operating unconsciously.
Yeah.
And I think Jason's doing a really good job, but it's hard, this balance thing. There's a question I wrestle with a lot, which is like, how good can you seek to become at something? Like, how much, if you want to be world class, can you be world class and still have fun? Can you be world class and still maintain balance? Can you have the biggest podcast in the world and still be balanced? And it's a really interesting thought experiment,
It really is, man. Like, it again requires that you look at what is success to you.
Correct.
Is success having the biggest podcast? Is success being the best CrossFit athlete in the world? And if that's true for you, then go do it. Then you have to sacrifice all the other things, and that's okay if that's what your goal is.
Correct, right? Exactly, because it's a worthy sacrifice,
But even below that, I think for a lot of people, the question is, am I doing this because what I think it will sort of reify this false identity that I have? Or am I doing this because I love who I am when I'm in the process of doing it before I've become great, right?
It's a big question.
That's the difference, man. Like, it's an interesting question for me to ask you, actually, related to CrossFit, because I know you're big on CrossFit now. Is it that you love the man that you are when you're engaged with CrossFit and then the results thereafter? Or is it that I need to do CrossFit because I want to get to a certain goal?
There is no goal for me with CrossFit. That much is clear. I'm not competing in CrossFit to establish myself against any self-inflicted leaderboard or trying to get to, there's no delusions of grandeur about being at the games. Right now, I think the work that I've done through movement is I've realized for me personally, movement is one of my greatest teachers. So CrossFit is something that I found just a couple of years ago that was completely novel. I'm a guy that's explored like so many different movement modalities, and just by happen chance of moving to Cookeville, Tennessee, which I didn't know at the time, plopped myself in next door basically to the world's most famous CrossFit gym. And that was kind of just like a chance happening. I was like, so I guess I got to try this thing. I'm a mover. Let's try it. So when I go in, I think I have a super healthy relationship with movement. I don't beat myself up too much. I just really enjoy the teacher that it is. And I really enjoy that, going back to those MMA days when I went into that gym and I got my ass beat so badly, it was kind of like getting into CrossFit because there was a bunch of new skills that I'd never done before. And I would go to the 6 a.m. class or whatever it was, and they'd say, double unders are on the menu today. It took me like 6 months to learn how to do a double under. And I was getting my ass beat by like 45-year-old stay-at-home moms. And I was like, this is humbling. Okay, do this movement, can't do it. Do Olympic lifts, can't do it. And instead of then feeling bad about myself, that was so cool for me to find. I'm like, sweet, get to grow now. Get to have newbie gains again.
When I did CrossFit, dude, the movement that I could never get down was toes to bar, like the rhythmic toes to bar. Couldn't do it. I could do kipping pull-ups. I could do everything else. I could finally do double unders at one point. I could not do the rhythmic toes to bar. I don't know why.
Yeah, and that's what's cool to me about CrossFit is like there's so many movements that there's always going to be a weakness to find. And even if you've kind of cleared up and you have no glaring weaknesses, then there's always, you can do more and you can be better at it. So I don't know if I'll do CrossFit forever, but I'm very, very much enjoying this chapter of doing CrossFit. But I've had so many movement things that I've fell in love with over the years, and I've allowed them to flow and go out of my life as they've come and went, you know. So like obviously MMA and jiu-jitsu was a huge chapter. And then through traveling, I kind of lost those practices because you're not at a gym. You're moving into a different city everywhere. So that was much more like locomotion and inspired by Ido Portal and movement and MoveNat and animal flow. And then we landed in Florida for a little bit and I got back into jiu-jitsu and I love that. And then I started just classically doing like bro lifting and then kettlebells and then maces. And now it's CrossFit and yoga. There was a big stint of hot yoga in there, which I really enjoyed. I just think movement to me is just such a blessing. I just love being in the act of moving and I really enjoy it. And to the point where I feel like so many people's approach to movement and exercise is like one that's spoken about a lot online. Like, you've just got to cultivate discipline. You got to do it even though you don't want to do it because it's a thing you've got to do, you know, because you got to do it, because you got to build a muscle. And I'm like, I don't have ever that need to go deep into my soul to pull out this desire to work. I want to work out. I love it. It makes me feel good. I think you've probably had smart people on here that talk about neurochemicals in the brain, but what happens when you exercise? Your brain gets flooded with earned dopamine and BDNF, brain-derived nootropic factor. It's like miracle grow for your brain. You feel amazing. You feel on top of the world. You're high. Exercise is the best free drug that we have. It's incredible. So I just love it, man. And I love all forms of exercise. And if I come out to Austin sometimes and I had a friend hit me up and be like, hey, you want to go to Pilates? I'll be like, yeah, I'll do Pilates. You want to go do Tai Chi in the park? Yeah, I'll do that. Like, movement to me is medicine, truly.
Amen, man. I couldn't agree more. There's this dude that I play pickup basketball with that's in his like mid 50s, if not late 50s. And he moves really well on the court. And I remember after one of the pickup games, me and this other dude just pulled him aside and we're like, what do you do like to stay in shape? And he's like, I play a lot of basketball. I used to lift a lot of weights. I don't really do that much anymore into old age, but I walk everywhere. I'm always moving. I walk my dog multiple times a day. And then I play pickup basketball every single day. It's like, he's just moving.
He's just moving.
That's it.
What's that? Objects in motion, stay in motion kind of philosophy. And you know, there's the really cool Chinese proverb that we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. That's that guy right there. He's maintaining something that is youthful in his movement because he just kept playing.
Yeah.
And that, like, again, bread and circus conversation aside, that's like all we're doing when we exercise is we're playing. You know, even in CrossFit, Edmund, when I had him on the show, we were talking about like how I enjoy competition. And he was like, well, you know what's interesting about competition is it's first predicated on collaboration because you can't compete with someone that's not willing to do it with you. So he's like, you might not like competition as much as you like the collaboration of the agreement to do that. And that's what you really enjoy. And I was like, that's so interesting. Yeah, because that is one thing I have learned about movement. As much as I love it, I'd much rather do it with somebody else.
Yeah.
I'd much rather like, you know, get somebody involved in the WOD that I'm going to do today, or I'll just pull people when I'm at Heart and Soil HQ. I'll pull out the boxing mitts and I'll be like, who wants to learn how to box? I'm going to teach you all. And I just like moving with people, man. It's so fun.
That's awesome, man. I also love that too. I have a garage gym at home and I've actually stopped using the garage gym as much. I like either working out outside with just kettlebells or dumbbells or a mace in my backyard so that my kids are running around near me, or working out here at my studio because there's a gym just a few 100 meters away. And it's like being in the presence of other people, I think sort of fuels you to work out even harder.
Agreed.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, because there definitely is something like, and if you are going to exercise, like, let's make no qualms about it. If you are willing, at least sometimes, to really push the intensity, that's where the gains are made, let's say. And I'm not just talking about muscle, although if you want to nerd out on muscle science, that is also where those gains are made. Yeah. The biggest problem, there's no such thing as bad movement. There's just underprepared bodies. But when you see like older people in the gym and you can see them on a machine and they're going like this, the thing that they're doing, and it's great that they're moving some blood flow, but if you can't see what I'm doing right now, I'm doing like a pseudo, you know, bench press kind of thing, but there's no resistance. So they're on the machine and they're like, I'm going to do 10, 15 reps. And it's great that they're moving, but the problem is that they are not remotely reaching the intensity level that's required to force adaptation through the body.
Yeah.
You know, those last couple of reps where you're like, and you're red and you're shaking, that's where the gains happen. And similarly in the cardiovascular arena of fitness, your VO2 max, like it's hitting that one extra hill sprint that you really didn't want to do. That's a disproportional amount of the gains are going to be made there. And it's very similar to life, man. Like the biggest breakthroughs come through that biggest compression point. You are not growing massively when life is hunky-dory. You're just not. And it's great. You don't always have to have chaos in your life. It's cool to be like,
you don't always have to be in a growth state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't always have to be grinding in the gym. You don't always have to be gaining. But if you do want to gain, you just have to acknowledge that like effort is required. Mm-hmm. Effort is required. Intensity is required. So if anybody is listening and just thinking about getting into movement, all movement is good. Walking especially and doing it outside are huge bonuses on top of that. But don't forget, every once in a while as well, turn up the heat. Like test your resolve. Like go to the pain cave. See what you're capable of. Not to become the next David Goggins and, run until your knees disintegrate into dust. But because it's fun. It's fun you're always going to be able to push beyond what you thought you were capable of. And that to me is so important because that's a story shatterer in real time there right now. If I don't think I can do this extra round and I do, then what comes back to life with me is what else is in my life right now that I don't think I can do that I can do. A lot, it turns out. Because I can probably, and you and we and all of us can probably do anything really if we're willing to risk it for the biscuit, if we're really willing to take that leap of faith. It's all possible.
Amen, man. If you listen to this show, you are probably well aware that there's something seriously off with our modern food systems. And even a lot of food labeled organic isn't what it seems. Some of it's shipped in from China where regulations are murky at best, and other times companies slap the USDA organic label on while cutting corners and doing the absolute bare minimum in order to achieve that label. That's why Dr. Cowan's Garden exists. Founded by Dr. Tom Cowan, they believe health starts with food, real food, the way that it's supposed to be grown. They call their sourcing beyond organic, which means they're working with small family-run farms who are going above and beyond the USDA organic label when it comes to growing their food. These farms care deeply about soil health and nutrient density, and some are even biodynamic certified, the highest farming standard in the world. At Dr. Cowan's Garden, they use proper processing techniques that humans have used for thousands of years because they actually work. Nuts and grains are soaked or sprouted just as traditional cultures did. Olive oils and apple cider vinegars are never heated, preserving fragile nutrients. Olive oil is protected from light because oxidation matters. The list goes on and on. The products at Dr. Cowan's Garden are made to be deeply nourishing and also incredibly delicious. Foods that you actually enjoy eating and foods that make healthy decisions actually feel good. Dr. Cowan's Garden is not about fads, it's not about fear, and it's definitely not about following government health recommendations. It's about reclaiming a simple trust in your food. If you value transparency, tradition, and food that respects both your body and nature, head to drcowansgarden.com or just head to the show notes and use code THEWAYFORWARD for 15% off your first order. Welcome back to Real Nourishment. One thing on CrossFit that I used to really love about it is that there's always a strength portion first, so you can like really challenge yourself on your strength in any one of those movements. And then there's a workout where you're having to challenge really like your mental fortitude and resolve, right? Because that's the game that you're playing there. The one thing that used to bother me about it though, especially having injured myself doing snatches, which I had way too much weight on the bar. It was part of an AMRAP, I believe. And I was working out with a few former lacrosse players from West Point that we were like, really pushing each other at this gym in Oklahoma. And I felt a pop in my shoulder, and I should have had no business with that weight on the bar, and should have had no business maybe even doing snatches because the lack of shoulder mobility that I had at that time. And I think that the gym didn't have enough trainers there to actually monitor based on how many people were doing the workouts. All that being said, what is your relationship now to mobility work or, fascial training, if you will? I'd love to hear that.
I had a very big stint where I went very deep into mobility work. And what's fascinating about it, I think mobility work is probably the best investment you might be able to make from a movement thing. Like right now, almost everybody wishes they started 10 years ago and they didn't. So start like yesterday with your mobility. the beautiful thing is mobility really sticks around. Like once you've regained the capacity to access those states, unless you completely stop for a long, long time, you're going to keep most of those mobility gains. And to me, that is real estate within your body that you now own. You own because I think when injuries happen, like you said, it's when you've forced your body into a position that it doesn't really own that real estate and you're playing in risky territory. Yep. But if you really open up and you own that real estate, you can choose to go there safely. And as we think about aging, because I'm at the point in my life where I don't have any dreams of like competing or anything again. I want to be a rad old dude. I want to be a rad granddad. I want to be a rad dad. I want to just play for a long time. And I want my kids to be like pushing me, and I want to hold them off for as long as I possibly can. Yeah. I want to teach them that competitiveness. I want them to kick my ass one day, but I want to make that as far into the future as I possibly can. Right. I want them to be like, oh, dad could still whip my ass if he needed to, like well into me being an old man and keep me on my toes, you know? And that is probably increasingly, especially as we age, less about how impressive your snatch is and more about what mobility you maintain.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, mobility, I think most people don't do it because it seems tedious and it's not that fun, but there are ways to make mobility very fun. And I'm a huge fan of animal flow. It's kind of like a dynamic yoga practice, and yoga is awesome too. But for some people, they need to feel like they've got the workout. You know what I mean? They need to feel like they've had the intensity, and the animal flow gives them that, whilst also ticking a lot of boxes around mobility.
What is it like? What is animal flow? Is it like
essentially
comprised of primal movements?
Primal movements.
Oh, okay.
Like animal-based movements. Yeah. So they give different names to different positions. Like the beast crawl is like a quadruped position, and then the crab is like if you ever played crab soccer as a kid. But you start to chain them together, and what's very cool about it is it's I call it sneaky strength, because you get really strong just holding your body up through space like that. It's very, very fun. It puts you on the ground, which says there's something about putting yourself on the ground, which is very humbling, very coordinative. I've run a lot of retreats with people, and I always integrate this into our working out portions in the morning. I'm amazed at how many people can't crawl, adults, because they probably skipped that phase when they were a kid, and they went straight from like rolling around on the floor, put in a walker, and they skip that. And that developmental phase is an integration between left and right hemispheres of the brain. And even as adults, you can tell they can't do the contralateral thing. And there's something there that is now a wonderful opportunity, because the brain and the body is quite a mirror. So the more you can do cool things with your body, I think the more crossover you've got and cool things to do with the mind.
Totally.
Like a tight body creates a tight mind.
Mm-hmm.
A tight, weak body creates a tight, limited perspective of the world. A strong, confident, open, flowy body creates a strong, open, confident worldview. Somebody said to me recently, oh, is that Confluence? Somebody at Confluence, this is the coolest thing. I don't know how long they were watching me, but they were watching me, and they just came up to me. It was a woman, and she said, I love the way you move. And I wasn't doing anything other than just walking around, but there was no exercise. She was like, you walk. She was like, are you a martial artist or something? I was like, well, I used to be. She's like, you just walk with like a grace. There's an ease to the way that you move.
And they thought you were me.
Yeah, and they thought I was you. And also, this event you've put on is absolutely fantastic.
I'm kidding. They're just that's amazing though. Yeah, people who have that gait pattern, I'm sure you've seen the GOATA videos, yes. The greatest of all time athletes. And it's like, there is a specific gait pattern that causes people to have an aura that is different.
It's like, different.
Wow, that is a beautiful movement. I'm sure you have it with all the stuff you've done. And
it's beautiful. That's the word for it.
It is.
It's beautiful. When you see somebody that's a really good mover that moves well, there's something where you're watching it, and it's not about the way their body looks. It's not about like, whoa, look at that ass. It's about like, there's a grace here.
Yes.
You know, there's a grace.
Yep.
And people have grace in different areas of the life. Some people have grace with the words. Some people have grace with their bodies. And I'm a big romantic, and I didn't realize this until later in life. I want to romanticize everything. If I'm doing something, I want it to feel good. I want it to look good. I want it to be beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you know,
the good, the true, and the beautiful, man.
Yeah. Why not? Why not try and make it look more beautiful? Why not? Because there's something about that I think is awesome. So the constant quest for that, you know, as everything is constantly in flux and shifting and roles are changing, and what I want from my body and all of that stuff is, I'm trying to keep forefront of mind, you know, keep the ego in check at times, because I have a great group of guys that I work out with, and we can certainly push each other, you know, and the banter's great, and I love that, and I miss that, and I think that keeps us young, you know. You want to shit talk your boys, you know, and there's 30 seconds left on the clock, and you're like, come on, I'm going to get you. Within reason, because then you don't want to blow out your shoulder and be out of the gym for 6 weeks. Totally. But there's that competitive element again. I think we want to compete And I think to the earlier point, that competition is predicated on collaboration, because I think we want people that we trust enough to go to war with, if you will. Like when we go to war with people in a safe way, they're bonded to us in a different way. We trust them. There's an intimacy there that sometimes you can't access just through means of talking, you know?
Amen, man. Amen. One quick last thing on the gait pattern that the lady recognized, and she said, I like the way you move. Is that something that you've worked on intentionally, or just a byproduct of having moved in so many different ways in your life has led you to
it's not something I worked on consciously, but I was a very, very early adopter to the whole barefoot thing. That resonated with me from day one.
Barefoot thing?
Yeah, like just living barefoot as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like to the point where probably took it to extreme some places and refused to wear shoes in public and all of that stuff. And I think it's a foundations up thing.
Yeah.
I think that really fixed some things. I think really learning how to move your spine and really learning how to rotate. I think there's something about that. I'm obsessed with spiral patterns. And I think that's
why you like Goda then.
Yes. Life is a spiral.
Yeah.
It seems to me that it's a spiral in the sense that it seems like even the same lessons are spiraling around, but we reach them at like a slightly higher level. So you're like, oh, I think we're over it. And then whoop, there it is again. So like this spiral pattern in the body too. And I think that's the one gripe I have about just pure like gym-based gym movement. It's a huge hole in CrossFit as well, is there's no rotation. There's no spiraling. Everything is linear. It's back, it's forward and back, and it's very dominant in that plane of motion. But life itself, I mean, there's no straight lines in nature.
No.
Nothing straight in nature. There's no tree that's perfectly straight. There's no creek or brook. Man makes straight things.
Yep.
Walls, like walls and squares and right angles, because it's easy to work with. But nothing in nature is that way. And I think, it's funny how our mentality changes when we get inside of a gym or a CrossFit box. It's a boxed in mentality. It's very boxy. It's very like linear. Whereas again, it's cool to have that be a facet of your training. But a facet of your movement should be very flowy and expansive, very dancey almost, whether it's rope flow or animal flow, or just, put it on a tune that you like and moving your body. I think that then working on that more just translates into, I don't know, you move through space with a little more grace, I guess. I'd never thought of it. I'd literally never had that reflected to me. When that woman said that, now I'm like, oh, do I walk nice?
That's one of the best compliments, dude.
I really liked it. It was so
do I look
random.
like Tom Brady or Michael Jordan with the perfect Goda pattern? Walking in a perfect straight line?
Oh, maybe. I liked it.
That's great, man. The one thing that we've danced around a little bit and we've talked about is Heart and Soil. And I'd first love to know how you got involved with Heart and Soil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because most people think of Paul Saladino, of course, when they think of Heart and Soil.
Yeah. It's funny. I was with Paul last night and they were sharing war stories about how they started the company. Dean was who's the CEO, and him and Paul had a chance encounter in a sauna, and Paul had a need as this thing was kicking off. And Dean was like, I think I could help. And they launched it out of this random little house in Austin, Texas, and it blew up into what it is today. And Dean and I were connected a long time ago. So Dean is the CEO of Heart and Soil right now. And Dean and I went through similar training programs back in the day, health coaching programs, one of which was the Primal Health Coach certification. So we just kind of keeping track on each other through that Facebook group. And there was a conference here in Austin, Texas that had its heyday for a few years in the late 20-teens, like 2017, 18, 19. It was really popular. It was called Paleo FX. I don't know if you ever went to it or heard of it. It was
I've never went, but I know what you're talking about.
Such a good vibe, It was like the first wave of that like alt health, all these weirdos mingling and gathering and talking about food and freedom and barefoot. And, it was really cool. And I met Dean there in person, and he was trying to do his own thing at that time. And I was trying to do my own thing at that time. Anyway, we went our separate ways, and we just were Facebook friends and buddies and followed each other on Instagram. I didn't even realize like a couple of years later, he had this chance encounter with Paul. They blew Heart and Soil up. Paul Saladino got on Rogan, and you know what the Rogan effect must be like. Like, forget about it. The problem is they'd sold out like the week before he went on Rogan. So Heart and Soil was sold out of products for 3 months after the Rogan, and they could have, done some damage with that Rogan touch. So Dean was helping Paul simultaneously grow Heart and Soil. And then, a few years into the company, like any company that's growing, they're like, well, what do we do to continue to amplify our reach? And we're more than a supplement company. Of course, the product is a supplement. And that's what it's here to do, is to give people back the gift of their radical health through this supplement. But we also, none of us are operating under the delusion that liver pills are going to change your life on their own. These are supplementary to your entire life. How you think about the world, how you feed yourself, how you move, all of the things we've talked about, the 4 truths. So one of those conversations is, what if we had a podcast? Because a podcast seems like everybody's doing a podcast, and we should get on a podcast, and we've got some cool things to say. We've got some interesting ideas, and our audience needs educating on all of this. So they're batting around this idea. I'm completely in the dark at this point, and they say, that's cool, but well, who do we get to run a podcast? You know, do we get a big influencer with a big audience or whatever? And Dean, you know, vouched to him. He was just like, I know a guy. He's like, I got this. Let me talk to him. So I get this random message from Dean. He's like, hey, this is the team at Heart and Soil are thinking about starting a podcast, but we don't have anybody in-house that we feel is quite the right fit. And he's like, you know, we know each other. You speak this language like almost better than it. You live the mission without being tied to the brand at all. You're just living the mission. You are it. You're the voice for it. You're good on camera. You're funny. You're all the things. Why don't we just try it out? Let's, figure out something. You come out here every once in a while. We'll shoot some podcasts. We'll see what it turns into. That's literally how it started, man. It was a collaborative effort, and Radical Health Radio was born then. I mean, coming up on 3 years ago now, which is crazy. And it was a perfect blend of these two opportunities where I'd always been a yapper. I'd like to talk, as you can tell. And I'd never wanted to do the lift on the back end of like get in the cameras and get in the equipment. It kind of scared me. And they wanted to fulfill that end of the bargain and just plunk my butt in a seat and talk to the people about what this meant. So I remember, the first time going out there, I remember how nervous I was, like recording a solo cast, like introducing what is the show and who I am. And I remember thinking afterwards, like, oh, that went so horribly. And I thought about it for days about
I interviewed Charles Eisenstein for my first podcast.
No way.
Yes.
Okay.
So I totally understand.
You must have felt a little bit out
like,
of
I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
This is scary. Oh my God. And then
I totally get it.
And then here we are, like coming up on 200 episodes later. And you just, like anything else, it's reps, Mm-hmm. And now it's so comfortable to me.
Yeah.
This is really cool because as you know, as a host, it's such a nice shift when you get to change seats and you're like, oh, this is cool. I don't even need to do any prep. I wonder what they're going to ask me. And oh, the limelight is on me right now. This is so fun. So it's awesome, man. Like I said, all I really want to do, aside from the obvious, like be with my family, be with my loved ones and all of that stuff, but all I really want to do for work, ideally, and get paid for it is like exchange ideas with people, talk about stuff, bat things around, laugh, cry, and everything in between. And podcasting literally did change my life. It really did. I've learned so frigging much through podcasting. If I can somehow pay that back, and this is like what you say, when people come up to me like, this podcast changed my life, and I've had like comments similar to that, and I'm sure as we keep doing it more, I hope to get more, not to validate me, but because it's proof of concept.
Yes.
That this is actually working, it's actually doing something. But when you're just getting started, especially those first 100 episodes, man, forget it. You're just putting it out there, it's echoing into the void, and you're like, is anybody listening to this thing? I mean, I know you can see numbers on a screen, but like, who are these people? I don't hear anything. I'm just like, and now it's starting to come back around and you start to get more connections and you start to, it's validating. It's validating on this trip out, on this batch of episodes. I am a guest on a show. You had me on, Josh had me on. That's validating. It's like, oh, cool. People are interested in what you have to say. But it takes time, man. And it's really fun and it's really cool. So my role with Heart and Soil is that director of health engagement or head of radical health. And that's what I'm here to do. Like fuck shit up in the best way. Like get people asking the hard right questions about how they live their life. Get them thinking about the 4 truths. Get them thinking about, hey, like a lot of people, it's weird at first when you say, hey, do you want some liver? And they're like, not really. Well, do you want it in a capsule? Oh, okay. Why? Well, you explain. Okay. Well, that kind of makes sense. And you can just see light bulbs going off for people. And I think, and I hope, and this is the thing that I feel, is that I do genuinely feel like we're on the precipice of quite a big shift in culture, in the world, in the new earth that all of our hearts know is possible, to quote the great Charles Eisenstein.
Amen.
Something's happening, undeniably. How smooth it's going to be is anybody's guess. Yeah. It could be very turbulent. It could be beautiful. It could be a bit of both. But I'm excited about at least adding my voice to the arena, or at least trying to get people healthy. And the coolest thing about, Heart and Soil and the products is they actually freaking work, man. That I got, because being in the health space, I've tried pretty much anything you can from the health perspective. And 95% of things I've tried, I'm just like, I have no idea if this is making a difference. I don't feel nothing. The only thing I've ever genuinely felt is like Heart and Soil. It's like the vitality, the energy, the bonus from the whole package. Like I feel it. And it's so cool because it's not a supplement. It's a misnomer.
That I was just about to say that. It's such a misnomer. It is such a misnomer, man. It's almost a disservice calling it a supplement.
It is.
Because that is also under the same umbrella as toxic shit that's synthesized in a lab that, we don't even need to get into all that. That's what people unfortunately think of as supplements now. There's a lot of resistance in the holistic health space to supplements, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But it also begs the question, what do you mean when you say supplement?
So on point, dude.
You know?
Because what we mean when we say supplements is just a catch-all term that, you know, it's so funny. Like we make noises with our face and I say words and then you assign meaning. So we say a word supplement and to you it means one thing and this person it means another depending on their experiences. But it's not as trendy of marketing to be like, oh, we're a real food company that puts food in a capsule. It's too much of a mouthful. So we're a supplement. Yeah, we got to find something new. But even like all of these things we touched on earlier, like this whole new emerging field of peptides, it's kind of organ based. There's some really interesting stuff, and I'm trying to figure out how much I can say here because there will be a book coming out and a book tour later this year about. It's the craziest thing, and you'll get a kick out of this. There is a lot of research, and this is where this world combines with the conspiracy world. Let's go. It's so fun. There is a lot of research that was lost shortly after World War II to textbooks that there's only a couple of them left in the world that were really diving deep into organotherapy and this concept of homostimulation, which is the scientific term for like, the energy of like for like. And guess what? It bloody works. And guess what? There's tons of science. It's all science. Are all the variables the best controlled and all? No. Bunch of different researchers, everything from injecting dog organs into people to feeding orally to doing patches. There's all kinds of weird stuff. But what we can say, and we will unveil this relatively soon, so stay tuned, is that it works and organotherapy is real.
Wow.
And the homostimulant effect is real.
I mean, that's how homeopathy works, is like supports like.
I was just talking to this, like, because I had a conversation with Melissa and she's explaiing all this to me. And I'm
Melissa who?
Melissa Cups.
You had a conversation with her?
Yes.
How do you know her?
For you.
What the hell, dude?
Small
Too connected. Yeah.
But
so
then
funny.
she's saying this about like the energetic resonance and stuff. And I'm like, this isn't too far away from what organs are doing.
Yeah.
Because we can't really fundamentally explain what a lot of our naysayers have said. And this is where it's going to get really interesting. And this is where I hope we get in some good internet fights because it's challenging the dogma against people like the PhDs of the world. Andrew Huberman has said these words, and so has Lane Norton, who are two very well-respected PhDs in the nutrition field. There is zero evidence for the like-for-like theory of organ consumption. There's zero evidence. And they're not wrong until we found the evidence. Now, there's a whole really crazy story about where we found it. One of these books was in Bulgaria, and one of our friends had a guy that was in Bulgaria, and he paid him in packets of cigarettes to go and find this in Bulgaria. It was in this one library.
Sounds so Eastern European.
It was so good.
Holy
it was in
shit.
this one library.
Paid him in a pack of cigarettes.
He was like, oh, my friend was like, what if I give you like a box of 100 Marlboros? Like, yeah, I'll do it. It was like a 6-hour train across the country. It's in this one library that you couldn't take the book out. So we shipped him this pen. As undercover pen to take pictures of the pages. So we sat in there with this book that you couldn't take out, took pages of all of them. We got them back. We translated them. It's insane, dude. And now we've got one of those.
What a cool
books.
story,
it's
too.
so cool. When it drops, it's going to be big. And we've got one of the books at Heart and Soil.
So this is through
HQ.
Heart and Soil, though?
Yes, in Dripping Spring right now. And that's what I'm hoping, because we're going to be able to, pull up those old clips and we're going to say, not so fast. There actually is science. And look at this. And it's also just expanding what, again, we believe is possible. Like with what Melissa's doing to challenge the dogma around homeopathy, there's always going to be naysayers. Oh, yeah, energy, vibrational medicine, whatever, woo-woo. But feeling is believing, results speak for themselves. And if we've got nothing else, we've got a shit ton of results. The craziest thing that I like to tell people to do, did this to loads of people at Confluence. Hey, if this sounds weird, just go to our product page, particularly for products like Her Package, and go and read the reviews. And just let the reviews speak for themselves. These are real people with real results. And Her Package is the female hormonal support. It's the wackiest of our supplements because it's got ovaries, fallopian tubes, liver. It's crazy. People read it and they're like, what? But then the women that take it are usually seeking hormonal health or optimization. They have amenorrhea. They lost their periods. They were infertile. They had PCOS. And I'm not going to say every time, of course, because that's a stretch, but there are dozens of, we struggled with infertility for a long, long time. There's a chiropractor in Murfreesboro, and he's a friend of a friend who put me in touch. And I set him up and I sent him some stuff. They've been on a fertility journey for 4 years. Several miscarriages. He texted me about a couple of weeks ago, a voice note, and he's just like, man, I don't even know what to say. We're pregnant. Like the supplements work. We're pregnant. We've been doing this for 4 years. We're pregnant from eating fallopian tubes. Like, because that energetic resonance and that match is rehabilitating what is needed to produce an optimally healthy environment. So I believe this, as along with things like homeopathy, along with things like all of these other things, German new medicine, all of it is the new frontier of what medicine actually is. And funnily enough, none of that comes from a lab. No. None of that comes from a scientist. It comes from what's always been here. Always.
Come full circle. Nothing new under the sun, man.
Nothing new under the sun.
I want to talk about the quality of heart and soil, because that's also another thing that sets it apart. I'll say from my perspective, Paul strikes me as someone who is so incredibly OCD in a good way about making sure he has the highest quality possible stuff without any contaminants or toxins involved in the process. So I'd love for you to share about that.
There is literally no company that's coming close to the level of transparency that we operate from. And then, talking about the product itself, just the high level of intention from start to finish, from sourcing the best farms that are actually using regenerative practices and not spraying and all of that stuff, all the way through fulfillment side of the house, which is a glass bottle. And that might not mean much for some people, but it means a lot to us.
Speaks volumes.
It's just not something else that's going to sit around for thousands of years in an ocean somewhere. It's like you can reuse it. They look pretty. You can send them back. Everything from start to finish, as high quality as it can be possibly done, is what is being done. And we spend an enormous amount of money to show people that. Because if you're going to do it the right way, you should be proud of what you see. All of these other companies, and there's tons of copycats now that have popped up, they're not packaging the same way, they're using plastic, and they won't show you the results. They won't be transparent, because I don't think they can, because if they have their results and they see ours, they're not going to see the same thing. We show the testing for things like mold and plastics and heavy metals, and it goes through various rounds of testing. The gelatin capsule is also tested. And it's even to the point, like, we recently put out a colostrum, and the conversation that we basically had in-house is, there's a lot of colostrum. Why put out a colostrum? The only reason is if we can't make the best colostrum on the market right now, we don't put one out, because there's just too much. Why make it? But if we can make the best one, then we owe it to the customer that's taking colostrum from another brand that can't do it as good as we to put it out. So what did we research? What did we find? Well, a bunch of these brands, name brands, I don't think we'll get in too much trouble, but there is one that begins with A and ends with Ramra. And then there's another one that is a cowboy something or other. They are skimming the colostrum. So colostrum is a whole fat, like whole fat milk and skim milk, and they're taking away. Why are they doing that? Well, then by volume of weight, they can say that the IgG percentage is higher. So it's a little bit of chicanery on the back end, because they can say now like 40, 50, 60% IgGs by volume, which is true. But because you defatted the colostrum, and then you're losing some of these proline-rich polypeptides, you're losing this entourage effect of what the colostrum is. You're basically saying skim milk is better than whole milk because it has less fat. When we know that, well, a lot of the fat in whole milk, especially raw milk, is where all the fat-soluble vitamins are. You skim it out, you're losing that nutrition. So we realized they were doing this. So yeah, we can't say that our IgG or IgA numbers is higher than theirs, because it's complete colostrum. And that's artificial colostrum. It's still colostrum, but you're messing with it. We're going single step cold filtration process as close to raw as legally allowed. And it's just the best stuff, man. I've had a high level of intention with the food that I've put in my body for a long time. And even if I wasn't remotely affiliated with Heart and Soil, like, this is the brand I would be taking stuff from. This is undoubtedly, because it's the cleanest stuff you can get. Everything from the organs are phenomenal. My favorite is whole package, because, just I enjoy that feeling of vitality and vigor. Colostrum, it's in my backpack right now. I never travel without it, because I think it's incredibly good for your immune system. And to Topher did a bit on the stage at Confluence. Everyone's talking about microzyma.
Microzyma, yeah.
And where is it most rich? It's human breast milk.
Yeah.
And it's not too far steps removed to think about what is that like colostrum. And
totally.
I have a theory that colostrum is probably loaded with microzyma, and that's why it's borderline magic. That's why, again, it's healing all kinds of immune related issues for people, or inflammatory stuff, or sinus stuff. And by the way, it's banned by WADA.
What?
World Anti-Doping Association banned colostrum.
No shit.
Yeah. So like NC,
because it's that powerful,
right? And
that speaks volumes right there.
Bingo. It's got IGF-1 in it, and these precursors for growth hormones. So like, no, you can't have that.
No shit.
And whole package is not okay for tested athletes either. None of our CrossFit athletes can take whole package, because it's got bioactive androgens in it, small amounts from the testicle. But this is just food. Can you imagine like having a friend like Dave the butcher, and you go to Dave and you've got a thing for balls, and you're like, hey Dave, give me all the balls you got back there, and you eat your balls that night, and then you're a tested athlete, and a couple of days later you pop for taking a drug when really you were just eating food. So that's the power. Like, these things are they're borderline medicinal.
That's
you know?
incredible.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I would call it true medicine. I know you can't make those claims.
We can't make those claims.
Yeah.
Whatever. Not medical advice.
I'd love to hear just a little bit more on some of the quote unquote anecdotal testimonies that you've heard from people. And I know you guys are in the middle of compiling a lot of these though too. So I'd love to hear those.
The ones that always just shake me to my core are those stories about the infertility, for sure. You know, and the closer you are to see these things work, the better, because it's quite remarkable. But I've seen a lot of this stuff in my personal life. You know, we had a neighbor on our adjacent land a few years ago, and sadly, since the dad has passed away, but it was a woman and an elderly father, and they would just come up a little bit during the summer, and they would hang out there. And so I saw this guy over a few years, and then the stark difference between the year prior and the year he came back, where he developed severe Parkinson's, like really bad shaking. And it's really hard to watch, you know, and he just wanted to go there to enjoy the nature. He wanted to walk around, and like he would get out of breath and be shaky, holding onto my fence, trying to make conversation with me. And I said to him, this might sound crazy, but I work for this company and we have this thing and this supplement. Lightly explained it to him. It's called Mood, Memory, and Brain. It has brain tissue in it. It's got really high amounts of DHA. It's neuronal. There's some theories that it could help with the symptoms of things like Parkinson's. Would you be open to taking it? And he said, sure, you know, and I'm not trying to sell this guy. Use my coupon code. I'm just like giving him this stuff. I'm like, try. And if you can get your dad to take this, I told the daughter. Anyway, lo and behold, I kind of forget about it, you know, and they're up and they're hanging about, and I see him a few days later, and you can just see like from this like really rapid shaking to just a slight reverberation. And it's just like, whoa, like there's something that is happening here. There is something that is happening to cause either neurons that were asleep to wake up again, to tissue to regenerate itself. Again, we don't actually quite know what is going on, although we know that it works. And it's pretty remarkable. I think the other one that we see time and time again is women after childbirth, if they lose a decent amount of blood and then they're struggling on their iron levels. We have a product called Lifeblood, which is a dehydrated whole blood extract in the liver, and it can just wipe out that low heme iron state very, very quickly. And again, always just worth talking about this one for the guys because it's very fun, is the reviews are always just like, I'm very horny. And my wife, and so I have an ad right now on Instagram, and I literally had a response to the ad because I'm saying like, you know, proceed with caution, you'll be annoying to your wife or whatever. And the comment underneath, I think this guy's name was Jacob, and he's like, nah, for real. He's like, I have this supplement. I can only take it. My wife told me to only take it around her ovulation because otherwise I'm insatiable and I'm annoying her.
That is so good.
So it's up to you how horny you want to be and whether that's an inconvenience to your life. But again, I think if you learn to alchemize that feeling of horniness and, you know, annoy your wife at the right time.
Create somewhere else, dude.
And create somewhere else and channel
create
it back into something else. It's an incredibly potent fuel. So there's all
move
kinds
some
of stuff.
weight in the gym.
Even dogs, man. That was a recent one I was talking to a friend about. You got our joint strength and repair, which is really interesting. There's tons of collagen on the market, but most of it is type 1 and 3. It's hoof and hide collagen. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's hydrolyzed and it's cheap and it's very easy to upsell. It's very hard to get a hold of trachea and scapular collagen, which is type 2 collagen, and the only collagen that has been studied and actually shown the benefits to regenerate tissue. So type 1 and 3 don't actually have any scientific data behind them, but they just say collagen can help your skin, hair, nails, etc. Yes, type 2 collagen. How many products are using type 2 collagen? Almost none of them. So we have a type 2 collagen product, which is trachea and scapular collagen and then like ground up bone. And a guy was talking to me about how his dog was having like hip problems. It's an aged dog and he's now just buying the supplement. He was buying the supplement for himself, but he was putting like 3 pills on his dog food. His dog was going through like a degenerative episode. And his dog's like running up the stairs again from this connective tissue. So it's just like this story over and over again of the like for like eat the systems that you want to support and don't believe anything is a magic pill, you know, like also use these little wins and the increase in energy or clarity that you get to make the other changes, to overhaul your food, to overhaul your lifestyle, to start moving again. But man, they can be a big catalyst for people because like I said before, I think we're in an energy epidemic. I think a lot of people are very low energy. And if there is anything to be said for organs, because they're so nutrient dense, a very, very small amount goes quite a long way. You can kind of knock out your RDAs for many, many micronutrients with one serving of like beef organs, for example, which is our answer to the multivitamin. that's just energy. It's just food. It's food in a pill. And it's energy. And I think if you can start to creep up your energy, now you at least even see opportunities for other areas that you can sneak other wins. So huge believer, man. And I'm just a man of integrity. I would never be involved or speak of something that I didn't live, breathe, practice, and preach. So I'm a believer because I'm a feeler. I felt them. I love them. My wife takes them. That's what she used for her prenatal and postnatal recovery. My kids, when they just broke their arms, we were sneaking bone matrix into the food. All kinds of ways you can use them and get creative, man.
Incredible, man. Incredible. And I feel honored that y'all are willing to sponsor this podcast too. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of resonance between our messages. So,
well, it makes total sense because you're all about truth and integrity, and that's what the brand stands for. And when we went to Confluence, you could tell how much people believe in what you say and who you align with because it was the easiest conference that we've ever been to. We didn't have to sell to anybody. They were just about it. They were like, cool, like, can I buy it right now? Sweet, here you go. Because it was a testament. They know if you're associated with something, they know it's because it's of the highest integrity that it can possibly be. So that speaks volumes.
I do my best. I make mistakes sometimes, as all human beings do, but like my North Star is I'm only aligning with things that I truly believe in myself. And if it comes to a point that I no longer believe in them for any reason, I no longer use those things and I let my people know. And ultimately, like, heart and soil is a no-brainer, in my opinion.
Yeah. Amen.
Pun intended there. Brain.
But we do have brain containing products if you want that too.
That's why I was saying that. That's awesome. Man, I could kick it with you for hours, dude. I know you have to leave and go to the airport. So as we're closing up here, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Thank you, first and foremost. Thank you
I
for
wish you
people
lived
that
here.
I would
hang with you all the time. I'd beat your ass in the gym and you'd beat me in a fist fight.
Challenge accepted. We'll have to start vlogging now. The Alec versus Steve, big bro, little bro series. No, it's really cool when I come out here because the one thing that I do, live in the kind of stripped back, much more in tune with nature, homesteader lifestyle, end of a dead end road. I'm not lonely by any means, but it is cool when I come out here because Austin's a special place for this kind of creature. And these kinds of conversations and these kinds of like, let's sit around a fire and pontificate about life, or let's sit in a studio and do it. And it's really, it fills me up. So it's really nice for me because I get to come and have this. I go home feeling so full and satiated. And then I do my thing at home and then I get to come back another 6 weeks from now and do it again and just keep expanding my awareness and my consciousness and my mind. But also, it's very hard to not want to retreat to that little countryside slice of heaven, man. I saw you post recently, getting your hands dirty in the soil a little bit. You're going to get hooked. So when you start the compound out somewhere nice and peaceful, just let me know and we'll come and join you.
Hell yeah, man. Much love to you, man. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for people that made it this far. It's a privilege to share ideas with you all.